Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I'm your host, Michael Hansen, and I do zesty things with microphones because I'm a ring announcer and cage announcer, finishing strong with the alphabet. Maybe we'll go back to the letter A in the next episode. I'm joined this week, as I always am, by my two friends. But not always, excuse me. We missed Omar last week. Missed him dearly. Joined once again by my two friends who bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing to you first, from New York, wearing white with a maroon hat, Mark Priaulx. Say hi.
What is happening, boys? Glad to have the family back together here. Feels good to have Omar back. Definitely missed him last week. And looking forward to this episode as a trio once again.
And now introducing, back again, the return from Florida, the Sunshine State, the Nicaraguan nightmare, La Pesadilla Nicaragüense, Omar Artola. How did I do with the Spanish?
That wasn't bad. I enjoyed that. That was good.
Thank you.
We need some more Spanish mic there. What's going on, guys? Yeah, so just a really quick, last week, basically, we ran into a little bit of a family emergency. My wife's father, unfortunately, passed away. He'd been sick for a little bit, so it's sort of one of these, he's no longer in pain kind of situations. But obviously, it's rough for my wife. And I met him a couple times before his dementia really hit. So I was lucky enough to at least, let him know that his daughter's taken care of and stuff like that. So just a quick shout out to Mr. Waldemar Hernandez. Rest in peace. And your daughter's taken care of.
Amen, man.
Absolutely. Rest in peace.
Amen. Rest in peace. Thoughts with your family, man?
Yeah, man, for sure.
Mark, anything new with you, bud?
Nothing to report, I don't believe. Just working like a dog.
My kid he's fully entering toddler mode, just so everybody knows. All the tantrums, the most random tantrums ever. For no reason.
How old is he again right now?
He's a year and a half.
Okay.
I could just be like getting him dressed, like putting his shirt on. He's like, no. And then like in a minute, he's like over it.
Oh, no's going to be his favorite word for about another year. So
yeah, man.
No.
All right, boys, let's get into this episode. Episode 53 of our little show here. We're going to start this week, as we always do, with our first segment on the marquee. We're going to talk about fights from this past weekend. UFC Fight Night, Blaydes versus Aspinall. We're also going to discuss some fights that happened in the Bellator and ONE Championship side of the MMA world. We're going to find out who rose and who fell in our very own rankings system, the Priaulx Rankings. Then we're going to find out what's going on in the headlines with our segment Inside the MMA Sphere with Omar Artola. And then we're going to look ahead to this coming weekend, UFC 277 going down in Dallas. Guys, we have a lot to talk about. Oh, by the way, we're going to end with a little bit of trivia, as we usually do. Okay, before we get into any of these...
Trivia last week. Did you see that?
We've
been cold.
I
nailed it last week. Thank you.
I was in the car listening, and I did not.
All right. Before we get into any of these fights from this past weekend, gentlemen, let us first thank our audience. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, thank you so much. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up, like this video, share this video with someone who you know who loves MMA and might not yet know about our show. My favorite thing I mentioned last week, Omar, you might agree. I think Mark agreed as well. My favorite form of audience engagement are comments. If you are watching this right now, drop us a comment. Let us know that you're watching. Give us a wave emoji down in the comment section, or even better, give us a response to one of our takes. If you agree, if you disagree, love the thoughtful conversation. Hey, if you want audio only, we got you there. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, Find us on social media. You can find us on all the socials at @andnew_MMA show. Let us begin. This week, gentlemen, the names on the marquee are going to be both Paddy the Batty Pimblett and Molly Meatball McCann, who both won over the crowd in London this past weekend at the O2 Arena for UFC Fight Night. Blaydes versus Aspinall. Just about everybody on the A side of this whole card were Brits, but of course both Paddy and Molly, who have become somewhat of a buddy cop duo, are kind of stealing hearts and winning fans every time they fight together on a card. So both of them finished their fights in the first round, and tremendous stuff. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. Kind of a unique start to our show with two fighters on the marquee. What is your reaction to both Paddy's and Molly's first round finishes?
Yeah, I'll just say first, obviously, second week in a row, we have a little bit of maybe a random feeling marquee. But again, we had a main event where we didn't get any result. Obviously, we'll get to that one in a minute. So looking down the card, I mean, these are the two that delivered. They had all the hype on them coming into this event. Like you said, they've become this duo that they're almost billed as. Like you see one, you see the other. I'm not sure we've had that many duos quite like this in MMA. They had the weight on their shoulders to carry this event, and there was a lot of other Brits on this card, other guys that we'll get to.
Yeah.
You had Jai Herbert, you had Muhammad Mokaev, you had Nathaniel Wood, you had Mark Jacasey. That was all prelims. I'm trying to think about the main card now. Who else we had? Well, Aspinall, he got hurt. But all those guys, yeah, they won their fight, Aspinall aside. But none of them did it in any kind of fashion that hooked the crowd. These two came out and delivered in every way that you could deliver. So you got to give them credit because the spotlight is on them. I don't know if I'm sold on the top-level talent of either one of them, and they're delivering anyway. So you got to give them credit. They deserve their credit. I guess we'll kind of do it one at a time here from this point on. So I'll do Paddy first. 3-0, 3 finishes. I mean, guy still hasn't lost a round in the UFC. You heard me correctly on that. He absolutely won round 1 of that fight. I don't know what these announcers
by the
are
way,
watching.
And I did misspeak before. I said they both had first round finishes. Paddy won his fight by submission in the second round.
Correct. Yeah, I don't know what these announcers were watching, given that round 1 to Levitt. He did a whole lot of hugging and nothing else. Paddy had like 10 good shots. He had a couple sub-attempts. I didn't even think that round 1 was a question. But then he gets it done again. He continues to deliver. Obviously, we know that the competition hasn't been incredible. But Jordan Levitt is a skilled grappler, and for Paddy to take him out in the fashion that he did is a nice little statement. And Paddy has always been crafty at setting up submissions. Like, it's one of his calling cards from back in his Cage Warriors days. He's got some of the flying triangles, other crazy things, but the way that he slipped that arm under the neck in an almost like Darce position against the fence there and used that setup to take the back and then traps Levitt's arm as he's taking the back in the body triangle. I mean, I don't care how high level the opponent is. That is stupidly slick any way you want to look at it. So Paddy gets it done again, rocks the O2 again, does it in style, finishes in the strong suit of his opponent, hops on the mic, gives a fantastic promo of superstar Paddy, then shifts it into real guy Paddy talking about mental health. I mean, he really couldn't have done it better. You can't write it up much better for the way Paddy Pimblett's career continues to roll right now, as we have now maybe hit the point where he is going to fight someone fairly dangerous here. And I'll shift it over to Omar before I get to Molly. That way we break this up a little bit.
Yeah, let's do Paddy first. All right, Omar, give us your assessment of Paddy Pimblett's big win over, thus far, his toughest opponent on paper in Jordan Levitt.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch Jordan Levitt fight the way that he fought that fight, because when you've watched him in previous fights, he's definitely the aggressor. He's definitely a lot more active. And, Paddy was saying something leading up to the fight where he was talking about how this is a big moment. Jordan Levitt hasn't fought on anything other than Apex cards where there's nobody there. He hasn't fought on the big stage. He hasn't walked into a crowd. He hasn't definitely never been the bad guy when it comes to a fight. And so, Paddy was exaggerating, right? He was making light of it and stuff. He's going to shit himself. You might see the first guy ever shit himself on there. I mean, he might have actually shit himself when he got up there, and he really, as far as I'm concerned, the way he fought, he shit the bed. That's not how he fights. I've never seen him fight like that in the 3 or 4 fights that he has in the UFC. And I really think the moment got to him. I think the opponent got to him, and I think it really did get in his head. And I just think he seized up. I think, he was, in the first round especially, you could see he was just holding on. He was holding on because he wanted to win that round. He just wanted to he wanted to win more than he was in his previous fights. He was putting on a show, and he was fighting. He was really doing something in those other fights. Here, it didn't seem like it was the same thing. Paddy was the one who was trying to put on a show, trying to put on a performance. And you could see it was they were in there for 2 different reasons. I am glad that Paddy got the sub. I called that second round sub, and it was beautifully done. I mean, if you look at Paddy's control on the ground, I think it's absolutely fantastic. Jordan Levitt didn't have any answer for it. His balance, the way that he was able to balance himself and not get sucked underneath Jordan Levitt in a lot of those rolls and exchanges, I thought was absolutely fantastic. The reality isn't, and I kind of agree with Mark, I have no idea if we're ever going to see UFC gold around his waist. I think it's way too early to say that. I think it's too early to say that you'll never see it either. But as of right now, the skills that he shows, I think, are elite. I think there's a lot of guys that we see that are higher ranked than him that don't pull off a lot of the things that he does in the cage. So it'll be interesting to see if he can keep the momentum going and keep that kind of skill level up against guys of higher caliber. We might very well see Paddy with gold around his waist one day. Who knows?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was noticeable, too, how quick he would get up. Like, there was 4 or 5 times where Levitt had him hit the mat, and it was like, oh, maybe we're going to be down here. And then it was like, oh, no, we're not. He's already standing up. Like, he was standing up with absolute ease, which is also something that I'm sure had Jordan Levitt like, okay, what the fuck is going on? He just keeps standing right back up.
But why not adjust? That was the thing. It's not like Jordan Levitt doesn't know how to strike. Jordan Levitt is extremely, extremely durable when it comes to the striking. He's has a super dexterity in his legs. He does weird, crazy shit with his legs because he can, and he utilized none of it. He didn't strike. He didn't try to strike with Paddy at all. It just seemed like a weird.
I think that fight's over even faster if he tries to strike with Paddy. I don't rate Jordan Levitt striking.
I mean, it's not like Paddy the Baddy's got the best striking in the world either. The boy keeps his chin up and his hands down half the time.
I agree, but I don't think Levitt really has anything.
Yeah. But also the way they fight, I think. What's that?
I was saying I would just give it a shot.
Striking.
I think that there is a disparity between the two of them. Maybe not necessarily in terms of striking acumen, but Paddy definitely has. He brings in more of an intensity in the stand-up game, more ferocity. I would say that Paddy probably had the edge in power for sure. I think that his intensity in there plays into that. So yeah, I kind of am leaning more towards Mark that I think that the reason why Paddy seemed to really crank up the intensity in the striking game in this fight is because I don't think he felt that he faced that much danger from Levitt on the feet.
I agree.
But also, Levitt's strong suit is his jiu-jitsu, is his grappling. But Paddy also is very strong on the ground. So Paddy was like, let's go. Wherever this fight goes, I'm going to dominate this guy. And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, it seemed interesting that that's his bread and butter because he seemed like he didn't know what to do once he hit the mat. It seemed like he had no plan on what to do with Paddy.
Levitt?
Where to, yeah. Like, Paddy, once he got on the ground, he always seems to have some sort of path. He's trying to get something. It doesn't matter what's there, but he's trying to get something. The man was like, he was basically teabagging him in the middle of that roll exchange and somehow found, some kind of weird triangle. Like, regardless of whether he gets it or not, he's always seeming to try to go for something. Levitt didn't really seem like he was doing that and didn't seem like he knew where to go once he was in the guard. There must have been something that he felt while he was down there. Maybe he was worried too much about control and not about passing as much to kind of advance the position because he might have felt that Paddy was escaping those positions. Who knows? But from the outside looking in, it didn't seem like he knew where to go once he hit the mat.
Yeah, man.
Let's shift. I love that first point you made just real fast. I love Paddy's grappling because he is never a guy who's like, okay, this is where we are now. it's always like, okay, how can I shift this immediately? What can I do to threaten to shift us over here, whatever way. I love watching him grapple.
Same.
I love watching Paddy fight, man. Critiques aside, in terms of whether or not he's going to make it into the upper echelon of the division or whether or not he's ever going to hold a title, I love watching Paddy Pimblett fight, man, because Paddy Pimblett brings action. When Paddy Pimblett is in a cage, locked in there with one other man, there is danger, and that is why we tune in, and that is why we watch, and that is why we watch him. And the fans love him for a good reason, and that is the reason. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. Let's shift focus over to Molly McCann, the on the marquee fighter this week. The women's flyweight division, she defeated Hannah Goldie by TKO with a spinning back elbow of beauty, followed up with some punches. The official time came at 3:52 of the very first round. Omar, let's start with you this time. What was your assessment of the meatball winning in style?
I'm so obsessed with that girl's spinning back elbow. Like, it's so good, and she makes it look so easy, which is, I think, the worst part. She just gets the cage, and I'm just gonna gently step right over here. Whoops, there's the elbow, and it's so crazy to see that people just allow her to enter their space like that. And Hannah Goldie just didn't do anything, just sort of just stayed there against the cage and just let Molly just let lightning strike twice. The only reason I didn't pick this girl to win by TKO is because I don't think she was going to knock somebody out with a punch. I did expect if she landed another spinning back elbow, she'd be able to do it. But who the fuck lands 2 spinning back elbows back to back in fights? It just doesn't happen. But apparently it does. And so kind of feel dumb now having picked the decision. But Molly McCann with the elbow. And she even hit up The Rock and was like, so I think we're going to call this the people's elbow now if you're cool with that. And he's like, shit's all yours, girl. You can take it now. Run with it. It's all yours. So got to love Molly McCann, man. She's another good time. She was wasted by the end of that night. But fantastic 100%. Fantastic time.
All right, Mark, you're in. Give us your assessment of the meatball's spinning back elbow finish.
Yeah, I was telling everyone that she would win that fight by decision. Like, people were asking me, should I bet the under in this fight? But she finished there. I'm like, no, it's a decision. It's a decision. But apparently you put Molly McCann in front of an English crowd, and she turns into a knockout artist. Like, it's unbelievable how good she has looked in these 2 fights in the O2. Like, not as if she's bad in the other ones. She's not. But this is unreal. Like, she has become must-see TV. Her hands are so good. She throws from great angles, which she needs to do to make up for the reach disadvantage that she usually has. This fight, finally, she did not have one. And then, like Omar said, she lands another spinning back elbow to start the finishing sequence. And in the first, whatever it was, like 3-4 minutes of the fight, like, it's unreal. And then she runs out of the cage. She bullies her way past security. She jumps into Dave Portnoy's arms. He's carrying her through the crowd. I mean, how's Dave Portnoy doing right now with the first 2 fighters ever that Barstool sponsors are Paddy and Molly? It's working out pretty damn good thus far. Later on,
she's back. He said? Did you hear what he said about how he doesn't understand them when they talk, that he gets maybe every 8th word that comes out of their mouth, and he's still like, yeah, I'm on their team.
I did. It was great. Then she's back in the cage later with Paddy. Like Omar said, she's half a bottle of Howler Head deep. Like, she's just a star. Like, it's you can't not pay attention to her at this point. I don't know if we have seen a female with star power like she has, who has a fighting resume as low, I don't want to say as low, but as non-elite as her fighting resume. But somehow she has that, like, star captivity about her. And it's Molly's world right now.
What other woman can you think of that has this kind of charisma in MMA? Because even in the elite, Ronda was Ronda, but Ronda always had, kind of the, I
would say Joanna.
Yeah, I guess so. There's something crazier about Molly, though, than from Joanna, though.
Yeah,
Molly feels...
It's a different kind of charisma, for sure.
Joanna never really seemed to have, like... I guess the way that Conor kind of has Ireland, you know what I mean, or had Ireland. That's a whole other thing. It didn't seem like Joanna had that same thing, but it does seem like Molly has like all the Scousers on her. You know,
She
what I
said
mean?
it. She
Like,
said she's never seen a UK crowd get behind a woman the way they've gotten behind her, which is pretty cool.
That's
yeah,
really
dude.
cool.
I really think she's swimming into some uncharted territory when it comes to the women's history of MMA. I don't really think we've seen somebody kind of strike the popularity or the you know, that little lightning in a bottle over there in the UK the way that she has. I think she's very unique in that sense, especially when you pair up the two of them. We've never seen like a, you know, like a million vanilli in MMA. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think the skills match up. Like, if she ever is in the top 10, I will literally faint. Like, I will be. I can't even explain how shocked I'll be if she's ever in the top 10.
I'll
But-
tell you this: Lauren Murphy just beat the shit out of Misha Tate. So things happen, my guy. Things happen.
Yeah, I guess.
Hey, man, people can change.
Yeah, and to be
all
fair,
can
in
change.
my opinion, she looked better in this fight than she looked in her last fight. She looked a lot crisper in this fight. Her strikes before the spinning elbow actually were really nice. She threw some really nice counter hooks, some nice overhands. I mean, the girls, if she now has the resources to properly train, and I said this about Paddy when in fight one. Now that these guys get paid, right? They're getting these bonus checks. Fucking Drake just got $3 million off of them. They're getting rollies and all this other shit, right? They're living a certain lifestyle now that's very different from before. And it's not to say that they're still not hungry, because there's things that I'm assuming they want to accomplish, belts and whatever else. But now they have the ability. Molly's got a whole new set of teeth. I don't know if you saw that shit.
I was waiting to
You know
say
what I'm
that.
saying? She's got a whole new set of teeth. The quality of life is just going up. And so if you improve the quality of life and you improve their accessibility to high-level training, high-level strength training, and all this other stuff, if they're good at it, if they can improve, I mean, that's the way to do it. And we might see some real gains from these guys in the next
Fair point.
few years or whatever else.
All right, let's talk about where these two winners go from here. Let's stay with Molly McCann right now. Women's flyweight, Mark, put on that matchmaker hat. Give us a name. What would you do with Molly next?
So first off, I saw Ariel Helwani say that he thinks the logical next step is to put them both on the MSG card together in November, and I could not agree more with that statement. I think you absolutely put them both on that card. As for Molly, I thought her call out of Antonina Shevchenko was perfect. I don't want to rush her up the ranks because of everything we just discussed. I want to let her try to grow and at least maybe hit a new level. So I want to take it somewhat slow. And I think Shevchenko, Antonina Shevchenko, that is a perfect next small step up. And I would love to see Molly's aggressive push forward style against that distance management Muay Thai that Shevchenko brings to the cage.
Oh, but she also called out Miranda Maverick.
Maverick
Which is a little back and forth.
Maverick
Oh,
called out.
Maverick called out her?
Yeah. Like nicely. She said,
Personally,
like,
that's...
we both ended our fights with elbows. Let's decide who's the best
okay.
at it or some shit like that. I'd be down for that too.
Okay.
That seems harder, but not terribly hard. I guess somewhat similar. I'd be down for either one.
Omar.
And then, we're going to do one-on-one? Go.
Well, that is my pick, though. That is my pick. Miranda Maverick for Molly McCann. Stylistically, I think that fight is fantastic. Miranda Maverick presents some challenges, especially when we talk about the ground game. She's not a ground specialist, but she does know how to take it to the ground and nullify, people coming forward at her. If Molly McCann could stop her, though, I think that's a good feather in her cap.
Yeah, for sure. Was it against Maverick that McCann had said, like, I'll fuck you whatever you want to be fucked?
Yes, that was Maverick. Who do you think, just quick before we go to Paddy, who do you think is a tougher matchup for Molly? Shevchenko or Maverick?
Oh, Maverick.
Yeah?
Same.
I think because Maverick has more of an ability to sort of meets muscle with muscle.
That's fair. My brain wanted to say Maverick right away, but then I was like, you know what? I could also see Shevchenko find a way to kind of make her look silly because Molly just can't really touch her that much. But
The thing is Yeah, Shevchenko has a thing about, she uses a lot of distance, a lot of kicks and stuff like that. But the reality is there never has really seemed to be a ton of power behind it. And Molly seems like one of those women that's more than willing to take something to give something back. And I really think the power differential in that fight is significantly different.
Yeah, I'd rather see Shevchenko for her, personally. I think it's more winnable.
Okay, let's move on to Paddy the Batty. Mark, take this one first. Where are you going with Paddy Pimblett?
It's really interesting now. I think we have hit the point where it's like you could do another step or you could do a jump now. Where I have him ranked, the guys who are around him kind of are like Jamie Malarkey, Michael Johnson, Mark Jacasey, Joe Lozon, and so on. I've actually mentioned Lozon in the past as someone who I thought would be a really interesting opponent for him. Maybe that ship has sailed now with everything that's been going on with Joe, unable to get to the cage. But a guy who is really similar to that type of style matchup, granted he is more of a jump, kind of above the level of who I just said, is a Jim Miller.
Oh, fuck you.
If you want to go full-on test Paddy time, I think Jim Miller is a great choice. The only thing I will say is I don't know if Paddy has already hit a point of popularity that you can't risk putting him against an old guy. That, like, you have to put him against another young guy just in case he loses so that that young guy can continue to run with his hype, as opposed to Jim Miller just squashing the hype and remaining Jim Miller. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't know who would be like, this just popped in my head, but like a Terrence McKinney. So then you could be like, oh, man, Terrence McKinney, young guy coming up, just like some other young dude. But perfect world, if you want to really go for it, I'd love to see him and Jim Miller in there.
Oh, man, Jim Miller. What a tough test that would be.
Yeah, goddamn.
Omar, what do you think?
Fight. I don't want it.
Why do you hate it? Because you think it's too tough for Paddy?
Because I think Jim Miller would fucking murder Paddy Pimblett, and I'm not prepared
You do?
for that
You
right
think?
now.
You think Jim Miller is that much better than Paddy?
I think when it comes to the ground game, the thing for me, the thing that separates the two of them by margins more than skill is the experience. That experience in the cage. The shit that just happened to leave it, where we talked about, the moment and this, that, and the other. Jim Miller is not playing none of that. That's a non-factor. Jim Miller doesn't care about none of that shit. Jim Miller shows up, he's gonna show up, and I just think that's a rough fight for Paddy, especially with all this momentum that's going up. And to be fair, as much as we love Jim Miller, I feel like in the public, when we talk about pay-per-views now, because he's talking about being on pay-per-views and stuff like that, I feel like Paddy will be the more popular one between the two of them. And it just seems like it just wouldn't, the way I feel like it would mean something for us, it might not mean as much for his career as a whole, because people are there to see Paddy and not Jim. I still think you should put him in there, kind of like Mark was saying, with somebody younger, somebody who's kind of up on the same journey as he is. And somebody who's also still on the rise, somebody who's above the rankings from him, but still not a Jim Miller. My pick is Claudio Puelles, I believe is his name.
That's funny. I just was looking at young guy options because I threw out McKinney before, and right away I was like, ooh, Puelles makes sense.
Yeah. Claudio Puelles is the guy that I want to do. He's I think he's from Peru, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
But he's a good striker, man.
That'd be some grappling exchanges too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a good striker. He's a good grappler. He's definitely well-rounded, and I think he just beat the brakes off Clay Guida. Yeah, just beat the whole break off of Clay Guida. I think he got the same two submissions, right?
The fuck out of Clay Guida, yeah.
He knee-barred the last two guys that he fought.
In a row, yep.
So there's hype there. There's definitely something you can build up on there, especially when we talk about the grapplers and Paddy Pimblett being the grappler that he is. I think it's a great fight. I think that's a real test, at least in my opinion, for what's happening right now.
What if you got like the winner of Dober and Rafael Alves?
Well, Dober's an even bigger step than either one we just said, no?
Yeah. I like that matchup, though. Man. That's a fun matchup.
Yeah, it's not terrible if he...
Dober's a pit bull.
I don't know if they jump him that far that quick.
Okay.
But what about... Dober is like the kind of guy... I mean, maybe I'm wrong to say this, but like I was going to say, he's the kind of guy who's like... He's been near those rankings, and he's still in the whatever he'd be now, 20, 25-ish range, who isn't like a death sentence type guy. You know what I mean? Like, he is a beatable guy. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, some of those guys,
I do.
You're like, oh my God, that guy's so dangerous. And I feel like you don't quite say that about Drew Dober.
It's just funny you say that because as soon as you say that, I look over and it says Terrence McKinney TKO, and I just imagine Terrence just with a nice tear on his face right now. Just
Yeah.
When do you think they're ever going to match him with Ilia Topuria, who he had beef with not too long ago? And Topuria's at 155 now.
Yeah, I don't know if he's really staying there. I still have been waiting to find out what Topuria's actual deal is here. But Topuria is significantly better than everyone we've said so far.
I know. I'm kind of kidding. I was about to allude to the death sentence fighter.
Oh
again.
yeah, I'm not risking that one yet. Paddy's got to prove some more before I'm taking that risk.
I agree,
Just
but I feel
glancing
better about it. I feel better about it now
Same.
than I did the 2 fights ago when we first started talking about it.
Same.
So
Ilia Topuria, 4 of his last 5 fights have ended not by TKO, but by knockout.
Yeah.
That man is no joke. Okay, let's move on in the interest of time. We literally just got done with the marquee, and let's do the rest of the show.
Pick up the pace a little bit, folks.
All right, boys. Well, for the second week in a row, the name on the marquee is neither of the 2 names of the main event or the co-main event, but specifically the main event of the event, because for the second week in a row, the main event ended in very quick succession due to a terrible injury sustained by one of the fighters. So, the main event of this fight night, Curtis Blaydes took on Tom Aspinall, the hometown boy, at the O2 in London. And about 15 seconds into the very first round, Tom Aspinall, he threw a knee, then he threw a couple of kicks, and the second kick, he went back on his right leg, stepped back on his right leg, and immediately went down, grabbing his knee. And, he messed up his knee somehow. There's a lot of weight moving around in there, and I guess something tweaked, and who knows. So the fight ended by TKO via knee injury. Counts as a win for Curtis Blaydes. Sucks, though. Curtis Blaydes said in the post-fight, he'll take the win, he'll move on, but not the way that he wants to win. It's not like anyone's ever going to be talking about this win over Tom Aspinall. So, Omar, let me throw it over to you first. Do you have any kind of assessment of technique in those first 10 seconds of the fight?
I mean, not really, man. Right? What can you really break down? His leg kick was solid. I think the real problem was kind of where I would imagine, just based off of, we don't know any updates about the injury. There's no real, details about exactly what happened. So I'm really just going off of kind of what it looked like in the video, and it just looked like where the shin would hit the thigh, it seemed like his knee might have been a little bit closer than it should have been, and it might have kind of impacted on Curtis's knee as well, or his leg, and it might have done something there. It might have shifted something, or broke something, or torn something.
Do you think he
really
hurt
know.
his knee on the kick impact or on stepping back on the leg?
To me, it looked like a result of the kick that he then felt when he stepped back, but it looked like a result of the kick. But again, there was, the Ratchik one, we saw the dude's knee literally popping in and out, right? Like we saw.
Oh, no, don't tell me that. I can't.
We've seen last week Ortega's arm literally popped out of his shoulder. So like there's ones that are a little bit easier to figure out. They're a lot more visible. This one was just a lot more difficult to really pinpoint what happened, because it didn't, even in the replay, it didn't look like anything was shifting out of place or looking improper. So it's kind of hard to say exactly what happened. One thing we can be sure of is Tom Aspinall looked like he was in more pain than any fight he's ever been in his life. So
That's true. Mark, what's going on with you, man? Mark must be in a pretty dark place for the second week in a row. One of his guys in a main event went down with an injury. So, Mark, tell us where you're at.
I was just going to say, I thought it was bad watching this happen to Brian Ortega last week. This felt even worse because at least like Ortega already has had his title shots and stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm sure he'll be back. My man Aspinall, I'm like waiting for him to break through. Here we go. We're getting to the title. And now, boom, like just it sucks. It sucks. And now who knows how long he's going to be out. Now I got to worry.
Yeah.
I'm saying I got to worry. He's got to worry about if he's even going to be the same guy when he comes back from this injury. So, it's just, it sucks. I can't believe this has happened 2 weeks in a row, back-to-back weeks, both main events in the first round. If I'm Juliana Pena and Amanda Nunes right now, I'm absolutely panicking. But hopefully the streak will end with them. Yeah, this sucks. We got nothing out of the fight. As you guys were saying, the injury didn't even really make sense. Like, you watch it and you're like, I don't even know what just happened. Yeah, the guy was on a meteoric rise up the heavyweight division, and a win here would have had him knocking on the door of a title shot, maybe one fight away. Like I've been saying, I really thought he was going to be the next champ. And now all that momentum is squashed, and we just have to see how he looks when he comes back. Hopefully he heals well. Hopefully it's not as bad as it looked, but it looked pretty damn bad. As Omar said, that man was in a lot of pain. You don't see people in that much pain that often. He was struggling in there. And it sucks for Curtis Blaydes too, but at least, he gets the win. His spot in line is not affected. He will likely, we'll get to this in a second, but he will likely be fighting the same dude he would have been fighting if he had truly won that fight. So his spot in line is not affected, but I'm sure not the way he wanted to do it.
Yeah, let's get to that. Let's talk about Curtis Blaydes. Obviously, we're not going to match up Tom Aspinall with a prospective opponent because who knows how long he's going to be out of action. But let's talk about Curtis Blaydes. He is the technical winner of this fight. He, quote-unquote, holds his spot in the rankings. So, Omar, let me start with you this time. Give us a name of who you think could be next for Curtis Razor Blaydes.
Well, the top of the division at this point is pretty much lined up, right? We've got Tai Tuivasa fighting Cyril Gane, which I think in all respects, I think a lot of people were assuming that was probably going to be the next contender for the belt, not necessarily Curtis Blaydes. Curtis might have some other opinions on that, but, that is how it works out there in the UFC sometimes. And then Derek Lewis right now is matched up against Sergey Pavlovich, which is a very tall order frankly, for both guys. Pavlovich is an animal. That dude is a whole specimen. So that's a rough fight. Either way, Curtis just doesn't really have very many places to go at this point. And it doesn't sound like he's trying to fight for anything right now other than a belt. I don't know how much that's going to last. Realistically, if he does need to fight one more and everybody kind of needs to fight one more, if that's the case, to me, the winner of Cyril Gane Tai Tuivasa probably makes the most sense, or at the very minimum, the loser of that fight. But there's just not that many options for Curtis Blaydes other than, getting a title shot.
Mark, what are your thoughts? What's next for Blaydes?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think that's who he would have got if he had truly won this fight. I think it's who he's still going to get now. I think he gets the winner of Gane and Tuivasa, just because we have Ngannou hurt still. We have maybe this Bones and Stipe rumor that's been swirling for 100 years. The winner of Gane Tuivasa, and that fight's only a month away, is going to have to fight someone, and it doesn't sound like it's going to be any of those other people I just said. So I think it's going to be Curtis Blaydes.
Okay. All right. Anything else you guys want to say about Tom Aspinall or Curtis Blaydes before we move on?
Get well, Tom Aspinall. Come back and get this belt.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Fucking hell. Okay, in the middleweight division, in the co-main event of UFC Fight Night, Blaydes versus Aspinall, Jack Hermansson defeats Chris Curtis by unanimous decision. The score is reading 29-28, 29-28, and 30-27. All three for Hermansson. Mark, what was your assessment of Hermansson's performance against Chris Curtis?
He gave Chris Curtis a lot of trouble. Chris Curtis could not get it going. I think that he went in there expecting to fight a wrestler. He didn't get a wrestler, and he didn't know how to react to it. I get it. The man only had like a week's notice to prepare for Jack. Maybe he didn't have time to really delve into every layer of Jack's game, study him as much as he normally would have. Of course, you hear you're matched up with Jack Hermansson, you're going to focus on the wrestling first and foremost. You're not trying to get your face ground and pounded through the mat. So I get it in a way, but man, 15 minutes in there, realizing Jack was playing the game that he was playing, and Curtis couldn't make a single adjustment. He chased Hermansson all fight long. Hermansson, I should say. Am I saying that wrong? Chased Hermansson all fight long. Almost never cut him off or cut an angle in any way. And not only did he not adjust, but he goes into this whole routine about how Jack is running and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Jack is outlanding him in every single round. He put it on him bad against the cage in the second round. And he's winning the fight clearly the whole damn way. So Chris Curtis fell flat here. He doubled down on making himself look bad by his antics. And Jack Hermansson did well. He showed off other aspects of his game, showed he's not just a guy who needs to hit the mat to get a win, and defends his spot in the rankings.
Omar, what was your take of the performance of Jack Hermansson?
I kind of agree with that. Jack Hermansson showed that he has another facet to his game, but to be fair, that striking approach, I think to a certain extent, that striking approach wouldn't have worked with a lot of people in the top tier of that division. That's a fact. That kind of point striking and kind of overutilizing the jab. Chris Curtis, I thought, was ridiculous in that fight, personally. We've seen Chris Curtis fight properly in there. Whatever this resurgence he's been having in his career, and finally getting this shot to the UFC and watching his performances in the past. He trains with guys like Sean Strickland, who do probably the weirdest shit in the cage on a daily basis. It annoys me that a jab and constant movement is what got him messed up in that fight. At no point did Curtis try to cut him off like at all to stop him. He was going forward, and then getting mad at Jack that he was moving back. The fuck you want him to do? You just want him to wade in and just get punched in the face? You've got to cut him off. You have to be the one to stop him from going somewhere. You can't just point to the ground for 15 minutes and say, come here, and call him a bitch. Like, the Nate Diaz approach is not going to work for anybody other than Nate Diaz. It's just not. And, like, if I thought Chris Curtis wasn't capable of defeating Jack Hermansson, I wouldn't even have this entire discussion. I would just say, yep, another win for Hermansson, another day in the books. But Chris Curtis has every bit of skill to have put it on Jack Hermansson in that fight, and he took zero advantage of any of it, and it was super. I mean, I was texting Mark that night about how just absolutely frustrating it was to watch that fight and watch his lack of fighting IQ in that specific fight, because we know he has it. We've seen it. He just didn't bring it to the table in that fight. Maybe the short notice was a thing, but it just sucked, man. It was sucked to watch.
Hey, man, don't be too critical of Chris Curtis, because I watched a video of him beating up a street thug in a cage.
I'll tell you right now, I am not going to be the chooch that walks into a goddamn gym and tells somebody, a pro fighter, you suck, I could beat you and knock you out, and then get handled, and then have to get escorted out because after you've been handled, you kept talking shit to this man about how you could have knocked him out. Yeah. Move on. I can't with that.
Yeah. Up to a certain point, I enjoy watching those kinds of videos, as long as the fighter, the pro fighter, does show a certain level of restraint, which Chris Curtis did.
I mean, if you want to talk about somebody having somebody's life in their hands, Chris Curtis was his god for those 5 minutes, okay? That was the almighty creator for that man for 5 minutes, because Chris Curtis could have killed him 80 different ways in that moment.
Yeah. It's the same thing of like when people go to a comedy show and decide to heckle. It's like you get whatever you have coming to you, man. Anyway, I'm digressing. Let's get back on track. Mark, let's talk about matching up these gentlemen right here, Chris Curtis and Jack Hermansson.
I don't hate rebooking the Darren Till fight for Jack Hermansson. I don't think this was any kind of momentous win that necessarily moves him past that fight. But I get it if he doesn't want to accept another fight with Till. He's afraid he might pull out again. And if that's the case, I actually think him and Derek Brunson is a pretty perfect fight that we haven't seen yet.
Okay. I'm not mad at that. That's a good fight, actually.
Any names, Omar, before we move on?
Yeah, I agree with Mark in the sense that I don't think that win, especially the specific performance. The performance was the performance felt like, and it sounded like from Jack, that it was good enough to keep him where he is. I don't think it was supposed to catapult him or move him up, but it definitely didn't move him down by any stretch of the imagination. With that being said, I do think it should present somebody else with an opportunity to get one over on him. One that's not out of, not Chris Curtis, like who's 10 spots below him or something like that.
Right.
I actually think Andre Muniz would be in a very interesting fight against Jack Hermansson. Stylistically, I think that's super interesting. And from a ranking perspective, I think they're very close to each other. So I'm down for that one.
That would be
I like
cool.
Muniz, man. Muniz is coming.
Yes, he is.
Okay, let's move on. In the light heavyweight division, Nikita Krylov defeats the returning Alexandre the Mauler Gustafsson by knockout. In round number 1, the official time, 1 minute, 7 seconds. The Mauler got mauled, gentlemen. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What was your assessment of... I don't even want to start with Krylov. What was your assessment of Gustafsson in this sort of comeback fight?
Yeah, it feels like he's the story here, huh? It just felt sad. Almost like you're watching it, and it was like you almost just like, oh, no, like, oh, man, get him out of there. Oh, why do we let him do this? Like, get him out of there. Get him out of there. You know, like, it had that feeling of like, we shouldn't have let Gus get in there. And I don't know if he's going to keep going, but he looks bad his last couple that he's tried to do here. And he takes so much time off in between. I just wish he would say, that's it. My career speaks for itself, and I have no reason to keep doing this. But we'll see what he does. But, yeah, that one was tough to watch. He couldn't really have looked worse, to be quite honest. And as for Nikita Krylov, his style is sometimes problematic for him because of how kind of crazy and all over the place it is. But sometimes it works really well for him. And this is one of those times because he came out, he put it on Gustafsson from the jump as if he wasn't concerned about the fact that he was Alexander Gustafsson. And Gustafsson just was not ready for the pressure. He put him down multiple times in minutes. He finished him badly, put him out. And he may have the, he may have it on his record here that he's the man who ended up ending Alexander Gustafsson's career because, like I said, I'm not sure that we're going to see him in there again. So that was a great win for Krylov and a big way for him to bounce back from that Paul Craig loss and kind of put some buzz right back on his name in that division.
Yeah, man. Omar, give us your assessment of Krylov's side of this fight.
Yeah, I mean, like Mark said, the man did what he had to do, and he pushed pressure, and I just don't think Alexander Gustafsson responded well to it at all. And it just seems like some of the basics have been lost from Alexander Gustafsson. One of the things I think that we loved about him way back when, especially against Jones, was how technical the kid looked. How technically sound his footwork was, and his defense was, and his striking was, and the jab, very educated jab. And it just seems like now he's a step behind. He's catching kicks without blocking, and he's just allowing himself to get hit while he's in an semi-advantageous position. And the chin, I mean, glass might be too durable of a material for his chin at this point. You know what I mean? Like,
I've never heard that before. I like that.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy because the man got clipped with like a little, I mean, the guy was on one leg and he threw a punch.
Yeah.
There was no torque behind it. There was no, you know what I mean? It's not like there was any weight behind that punch. It was literally just contact made right to the chin. And Gustafsson went down like if somebody literally turned a switch off on that boy's body. And
yeah,
Mark hit it right on the head. That was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. I was not happy about that fight. It was not fun to watch. And I hope I never see Alexander Gustafsson in the cage again if that's what we're going to see, because that wasn't even competitive. It was just mean. It was mean to watch and to put him in there.
If you can't take a punch anymore, 205 is a bad division to be in, man, because you could say, all right, match him up with the number 18 guy, with the number 25 guy. These are all big men who are all going to thump him. And he's got to hang it up, man. He's got to hang it up. I'm looking at his record right now. And I will say this, all the way up until his rematch with John Jones, Gus was great.
Yeah, I agree.
Gus, his only loss all the way up to his first title shot against Jones. His only loss was against Phil Davis.
Yeah.
Other than that, he was 15-1 going into his fight with John Jones, which was a war and probably John Jones's toughest fight of his career, which many people thought that Gus might have won that fight. Then he comes back, he TKOs Jimmy Manuwa.
Yep.
Then he gets caught by Anthony Johnson in what could have been an incidental headbutt, stunned him, and Johnson has huge power and finished him.
Yep.
That was sort of the only blip of his career. Then he comes back. He loses a split decision to to Daniel Cormier
in a war,
which was another war.
Yes,
he did not get steamrolled by DC. That was a war.
He dropped DC.
Right.
He almost finished DC. In
DC calls it the toughest fight he ever had.
Yeah,
there you go.
I remember him explaining like the knee was what got him and wobbled him, but he's never really worried about that shot. And most people aren't able to get follow-up shots on DC is what he was talking about. Like, people will rock me, but they can't finish me. Alex was one of the few guys that was able to land follow-up shots after a rocked moment and really put DC on some real bad, well, I guess up until Stipe, but on really bad legs up until that point.
So two more. Then after the DC split decision loss, he comes back, he beats Blachowicz by UD, and then he turns in the greatest performance of his career by schooling Glover Teixeira and beating him by knockout.
Those uppercuts.
Yep.
And then more than like a year and a half later is when he rematches John Jones, and Jones just picks him apart in the rematch because Jones is fucking great. And then he loses to Anthony Smith, Verdum, and now Krylov. But he keeps taking these huge
and he looked bad
swaths of time off
in the second Jones fight. That was the first time where a Gus fight ended, and I was like, "Oh wow, he looked like shit." And then he never has looked good again ever since that.
And it's not like Jones had been looking particularly amazing in his more recent run of fights.
Yep.
And it really did make Gus look like it might have been time that we start looking at other options here.
Yep.
Well, that's it. That's it. Did we match up Krylov, or should we just keep going?
I'll match him because we're going to actually talk about the guy I was going to match him with in a second. But he called out Volkan at the end of that fight, who we're going to talk about right now. And light heavyweight is so crowded and so booked that I actually think that works. Like, all these guys above them are booked. Why not throw them in there and let them shake out who's better between the two of them and who deserves that shot at a higher guy?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, moving on in the light heavyweight division. Oh, Omar, you had something to say?
Real quick. I still don't know what Dominic Reyes is doing, but if he doesn't have shit going on, he needs to fight. He's got a number, 5, 6, 7 spot, something like that.
Yeah, he had been saying December that he'd be back. But that was like 3 months ago, and I haven't heard anything since that. But he was saying November or December.
Homeboy needs to get to work, man. There's people that need to move on up in this division. If you can't just stay there and just bogart a spot, let's go.
I mean, dude, when you get knocked out that bad, you got to take some time.
He's talking.
I get it, son, but
we have taken the time.
Listen,
the time has been
Parking lots have limits as to how long you can park at a spot. Let's go. Move your shit.
Yeah. All right. Okay, in the light heavyweight division, Volkan Oezdemir, no time, defeated Paul Craig by unanimous decision. 30-27, all three scorecards. I think a few of us last week here picked Paul Craig. Omar, let me start with you. You're grinning. What was your assessment of this Paul Craig performance?
This was another one where I'm like, what the fuck is Paul Craig doing after a little bit, right? Like in the first round, you're sort of like, all right, Paul Craig's doing this Paul Craig, right? He's on the ground. He's pulling guard. He's doing weird shit. But Volkan it was like watching a light heavyweight Ryan Hall, right? Like where Volkan knows what's going on here. Volkan is getting out of these submission attempts. Paul Craig's like, I just need one, man. I just need one. But he gasses himself out trying to do all of this submission. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is to get up off the floor and go back down and get back up and go back down? He gassed himself just from getting up off the floor for the majority of that fight. Volkan, I would say this is the best Volkan Oezdemir that we've ever seen or have seen in quite some time. But it was also like the worst Paul Craig that we've seen in quite some time too. Paul Craig needs to learn how to perform a takedown or how to properly get people to the ground, because the shit he's doing is not going to work when people know what you can do. If you have two moves to get people on the ground and only 2 moves, they're gonna learn, and you're not going to be effective doing it. Especially once you get to the higher levels. He's caught a lot of these people, but like we're getting to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Like, these people are not slouches. You can't just spam the same thing over and over again and expect a different result when it's not working.
Yeah.
So Paul Craig needs to tighten that up a little bit. But I mean, I still wouldn't pick Volkan Oezdemir again. But I mean, good win for him, man. He did what he had to do.
Mark, your turn.
Yeah, I think that this is what Paul Craig's style is. Like, it sucks because we're all just starting to buy into the magic of, like, holy shit, you really cannot hit the mat with Paul Craig or it's going to be over. And then he goes out and looks bad. But honestly, this is what happens with this style. Like, you're going to have these runs these guys go on in this style where it's like, he caught a sub. I can't believe he keeps catching these subs. And then he's going to run into a guy who doesn't get caught in the sub, and he's going to keep trying to catch him in it. And it's going to shift into, wow, he looks really stupid. But it's like, it's what this style is. Like, it's what's going to happen. And Volkan went in with the right game plan. He stayed safe. He didn't allow himself to get caught. He has great takedown D, which obviously helped because it really limited. Paul Craig could not do any kind of takedown where it was about him pushing Volkan because he could not move Volkan. They all had to be pulls and swings and pull him into his own guard and that type of thing, which made Paul Craig look even more ridiculous than he normally does. But yeah, you got to give credit to Volkan. He managed to land his big power shots, both standing and on the mat. He went down to the mat in bits and pieces and then got back up, and he gets a very big win for his career here. Another loss for him, and I think he kind of would have started to fade out of relevancy a bit, so he needed this one bad, and he got it. And he got it over a guy who had a lot of momentum in Paul Craig, who a lot of people were starting to get behind. So big win for him, and Paul Craig's got to, Omar nailed it. He's got to find ways to add more layers into his game, because you get a big, strong guy like that who is not just kind of going to be off balance like some of these prior guys have been, who's not going to land in rough positions, and Paul Craig's going to struggle.
I just want to point out really quick. We've seen a lot of these new bromances showing up, right? These like random ass bromances, the Darren Till and the Chimaevs, right? Kind of deal. I need Charles Oliveira to hit my boy Paul Craig up and just be like, listen, I saw your fight. Your jiu-jitsu's phenomenal, but I just need to show you how to get to that point in a proper manner. Let me show you how to sweep somebody. The boy, he's standing up. These guys are 6 feet, 200-something pounds.
Yeah.
Fucking kick one of his legs out from under him, bro. He will go down like a sack of shit, I promise you. But if you keep trying to tackle him when you're already exhausted, 99% of the time, homeboy's not going to go down. Go for some kind of sweep. Go for a hip toss. Go for something else. Mm-hmm. And I can
Charles
tell you right now,
will be like, here's the secret. Let them punch you. And then you almost get knocked out.
Oh, Craig did last fight.
Do you want to know the secret? And I told this to Mark when we were watching the fight. The secret is learn how to kick. If Paul Craig was spamming kicks over and over and over again, I guarantee you one of those kicks would have gotten caught, he would have gotten taken down, and he would have been in exactly the position he was trying to get in the first place. There are certain things that you can do when you're a ground specialist to essentially make people do the work for you. He doesn't have to go for 15 takedowns in a fight to get the fight to the ground. Look at Charles Oliveira. You see how many knees and kicks that man throws in a fight? Why? Because nobody's going to catch it and throw it to the ground. So he's got infinite ability to do whatever the hell he wants. Paul Craig needs to learn how to take advantage of those situations, because if he doesn't, he's going to look like an asshole every time, because that fight was ridiculous. The fact that he didn't adjust at all is crazy.
I think it's just a little different at these heavier weight classes where
I agree.
There's just more danger to fighting that recklessly.
So is it more dangerous to throw kicks from a distance, or is it more dangerous to throw your body into somebody else who has stuffed 7 takedowns already?
Oh, I agree with the kick suggestion. I think that's a good point. I also think
to
Craig,
work in more kicks.
It's surprising how Craig doesn't have any aspect to his game of like, I'm going to clinch you and try to move to your back standing. Like, he never goes that route. And you would think that if he could get behind you in any fashion, that he would be at a big advantage. And he never really tries to bring that aspect into it.
Agreed.
Okay, mash these boys up real quick and let's move on to Bellator. Mark, go first.
So it's Krylov for me, as I was saying a minute ago. I think Volkan Krylov makes sense.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I'll match up Craig, too, just because the guy popped into my head. I think him and Ryan Spann would be a cool fight.
Okay. Omar says Paul Craig versus Ryan Hall. they just both go down on the mat.
All
right,
and
let's
I should
move
point
on.
out for the record, Ryan Hall, at the very minimum, had some kick game in him because he outkicked what's his face, Gray Maynard, when Gray Maynard didn't want to play in the floor. While Gray Maynard was screaming and crying in that fight that he wasn't getting the fight that he wanted, Ryan Hall was putting the heel of his foot right into his face. So there's something to be said about adding certain things to your game if you want to be on the floor. I promise you, these wrestlers are going to want to take you to the floor. Just bait them like if you were
100%.
catching a fish.
Okay, let's plow on, gentlemen.
Yeah, go for it. I was going to have the same pick. There's not a ton of picks in that division right now anyway. It's pretty crowded. So we'll go with the Krylov pick.
All right, in the interest of time, let's move on, boys. This past weekend at the Emerald Queen Casino and Hotel in Tacoma, Washington, Bellator put on an event. Bellator 283, Lima versus Jackson. And in the main event, we saw Jason Jackson defeat the Phenom Douglas Lima by unanimous decision. A shutout on the scorecards, 50-45 on all three judges' scorecards. Mark, let me start with you. What was your reaction to Jason Jackson getting it done over the high-profile Douglas Lima?
Yeah, this is another one that had a little bit of that like sad feeling to it, I feel. I kind of was afraid this would happen. I couldn't not pick Lima last week. I didn't want to assume that he was done. But, man, I'm starting to worry that Douglas Lima might be done. He lost every round of this fight. Jason Jackson fought his fight. He grounded him. He grinded him out. His chain wrestling is so effective. Like, there were a lot of times in the earlier rounds where Lima would battle. He would stuff the first shot. But Jackson was relentless, would not let go. He would reset, shift the momentum, drag him down a different way. He's very strong, Jason Jackson. And, he would find a way. He's a tough man to resist when he's trying to drag you down. But I think Douglas Lima maybe is just not what he once was, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. I think maybe next fight I would kind of match him with someone who you'd like to say he should beat and see what happens there, make sure he can still do that. But either way, Jason Jackson, huge win for him. 50-45, any version of Douglas Lima says something. And he's a force to be reckoned with in that Bellator welterweight division right now. And if Yaroslav Amosov is not going to be ready anytime soon due to, the ongoing war in Ukraine that he's admirably fighting, then we may see Jason Jackson fighting for an interim title right now against Logan Storley.
Yeah. Okay, Omar, what was your assessment of the ass-kicking machine, the Jamaican Jason Jackson?
Yeah, what a crazy-ass fight. I don't think, with all the things that we were worried about, and the takedowns were definitely one of them, Lima has shown himself to kind of be susceptible to takedowns and wrestling. I don't think I would have ever seen this being a shutout the way that it really was. Lima had small moments here and few and far between, I should say. He had an up kick, I think, at one point that really hurt Jason Jackson. But even in that moment, Jason Jackson was still able to hold on to position even while being rocked. So it was a very difficult fight, I think, for Lima to fight. The other thing is, counter to what we were just talking about, how Craig needs to add more kicks. It's like Lima, knowing that he's getting taken down, is still trying to utilize kicks that are causing opportunities for Jason Jackson to find those entries to take him down. So not finding those adjustments and finding other ways to kind of avoid those moments, I think, was kind of not like Douglas Lima. I feel like, Douglas Lima has adjusted very well throughout his championship run, and to see him not really be able to do it now, I don't know if it was a matter of he didn't do it, didn't want to do it. Maybe the moment got to him. I don't really know, but it did seem a little uncharacteristic, not necessarily getting taken down, but never adjusting to any of it. Seemed a little weird to me, but it was a great performance from Jason Jackson as far as what he needed to do. Not the most exciting performance when it comes to a fight. But dude, that's 50-45 against Douglas Lima. I mean, the fans can go to hell. That's a solid win in your cap.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
forgive me.
Sorry, I was gonna say I actually think I would take Lima at this point. And so I know I was saying a couple weeks ago I'd love to see Sabah Hamasi and Brendan Ward just get in there and try to take each other's heads off. But assuming something like that's not going to happen, I would take someone like a Sabah Hamasi, a guy who's been winning fights, knocking guys out, but he's still Sabah Hamasi in comparison to a Douglas Lima. And I would put Lima in there against someone like that and make sure he can still beat these guys. Because if he can't, then I think Bellator maybe kind of has to adjust what they're doing with Douglas Lima.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that's 4 losses in a row.
Oh. Yeah. Okay, boys. It is time for the lightning round.
Let's try to truly lightning this thing. Because we are running long.
Fucking late. Okay, let's stick with the Bellator event. Bellator 283 in Tacoma, Washington. In the co-main event in the lightweight division, Tofik Musayev defeats Sydney Outlaw by TKO via punches. 27 seconds of round number 1. Mark, go first.
Yeah, this was nuts. I was looking forward to watching this fight. I was excited to see Musayev come over to Bellator. As we mentioned last week, he already has a win over Pitbull from when Pitbull went over to Ryzen. Pitbull being Patricky Pitbull, the lightweight champ. And it's over in 27 seconds. You can't make a demand for a title shot much clearer than that. He lands a right hand, slides out of the way of a sloppy jab that was coming back from Outlaw, and just clips him with that left that wobbles the hell out of him and delivers a big hammer from there to end it. So, enormous Bellator debut. Takes out Sydney Outlaw in big fashion. And looks like Patricky Pitbull may get to try to avenge his loss.
Omar?
Yeah, I don't think I would have ever picked that final moment to have happened at all in that fight ever. It was a great win for Musayev. Mm-hmm. Fantastic win for him. I mean, that's Sydney Outlaw on your record, especially doing it the way he did it. Doesn't get better than that. Good for him.
Mark, are you okay?
I'm dying a little bit. Go to Omar.
Your drink went down the wrong pipe? Okay.
I think it was air. Air went down the wrong pipe.
Still in Bellator, in the lightweight division, Usman Nurmagomedov defeats Chris Gomez by submission via guillotine choke. Official time 2:54 of round number 1. Omar, go first. Save Mark.
So this fight was very interesting because it starts off kind of slow, and then all of a sudden they grapple and they get into a clinch, and Homeboy's like, "Oh, you got into a clinch with me? This is real." Takes him down, gets the guillotine. That's all she wrote, man. It's nasty.
Mark, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Usman is so interesting because he can win a fight in any freaking way there is. Like, you could put every kind of fight finish in a hat and pull it out, and he'll be like, yeah, I could do that. Watch my next few. It'll be one of them. Like, he does everything well. And he snatched that guillotine so quickly, so viciously. And I personally think that once this, I'm assuming, Patricky Pitbull and Tofik Musayev title fight happens, you would think that's where Bellator goes here. I think the winner may be looking at Usman, and I personally think Usman is the future Bellator lightweight champ.
Okay, moving over back to the UFC side of things, UFC Fight Night Blaydes versus Aspinall. Let's look at, in the lightweight division, the featured prelim, Ludovic Klein defeats Mason Jones by unanimous decision, 30-27s across the board. Mark, go first.
I think we can safely say that Ludovic Klein was limiting himself fighting down at featherweight because he's moved up to lightweight, and that's 2 fights now where he's looked absolutely fantastic. So Great win for him. I think Mason Jones was way too willing to kickbox with a kickboxer of that caliber. I thought he was going to mix it up a lot more. He tried late, but the momentum had kind of already swung big time towards Klein. But a really impressive win for Ludovic Klein over a guy that I think is better than he's been able to show so far in Mason Jones.
Omar, Klein, UD's Jones, what's your take?
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, it was definitely a coming out party for Klein. I think he really showed a lot of domination in that fight. I also think it kind of showed a lot of a lot of things got exposed. I think for Mason Jones as well. I think he had a lot of hype coming up in the UFC so far. I think he's only had 1 or 2 fights before this, if I'm not mistaken.
So he's had 3 actually, but one was a no contest.
Okay.
Because of a poke.
And I think people really had high expectations or have high expectations of him. And I just think this fight kind of showed that he might be missing some of the things to get him to that level. Ludovic Klein, however, seems kind of like a little bit of an animal, to be honest with you. And it'd be very interesting to see what we get from him next.
Okay, moving still in the lightweight division, Mark Jacasey defeats Damir Hadzovic by UD 30-26, 30-26, 30-27. Omar, what's your take of this domination by Jacasey?
Dude, I'm just glad Jacasey's getting a win at this point. It's always kind of hit or miss when it comes to Mark Jacasey, and I have high hopes that he gets something done in his career that's kind of worthy and talk worthy about. So I just need him to get a couple wins, get something relevant on his resume. So I'm just glad he's got a nice dominant win in his book right now.
Mark, go.
Mark Jacasey, to his credit, has become a really effective wrestler and grappler, like more effective than I ever thought he could be. But unfortunately, it seems to be at the expense of the flashy striking that we once knew from Mark Jacasey. So, we kind of went through the flashy striker phase. Now we're in this really heavy wrestling phase, and my hope is that we're going to hit a phase where we are combining these two things, and if we ever get there, he could really be a factor in this division. But either way, obviously a clear and dominant W for him on this night.
Yeah.
All right, in the featherweight division, Nathaniel Wood defeats Charles Rosa by unanimous decision, 30-26, 30-26, 30-27 on the scorecards. Another dominant performance, this time at featherweight. Mark, go first.
Yeah. Nathaniel Wood looked really good. He was so fast, so sharp. He'd shoot up the calves of Charles Rosa, and he really just put it on him for 15 minutes. Rosa would not go away. To his credit, we know Rosa's a tough guy. But really impressive featherweight debut for Nathaniel Wood, and I'm glad to see it because he's one of these guys who, when I heard he was struggling to make bantamweight, I was like, man, I don't know how well his frame translates to featherweight, and I thought he had a lot of potential at bantamweight. I did think he'd beat Charles Rosa, but after seeing that, I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe featherweight's going to go fine.
Omar.
I'm not really sure how much further we really need to go with Charles Rosa in the UFC at this point. I think we've kind of seen that he has a ceiling there. The reality is every time he steps into that cage, if he's, not winning the fight, he's getting absolutely brutalized by somebody. And, to Mark's point, the kid is very, very tough, but the kid's going to end up with like a dead leg by the time his career is over. They're going to need to chop one of them off because the blood just doesn't flow properly anymore down there. The man allows his legs to get eaten up in almost every fight that he's in. Drops to the floor. I mean, first of all, Paul Craig needs to learn that kind of leg sweep and just kick somebody's leg right from under him and just drop him the way that they were doing to him. But I just don't know how much more we really need to see from Charles Rosa. And to counter that point, I want to see a lot more of Wood. I think his star right now is that performance in and of itself, I think was awesome. And it's definitely one of those performances where you just want to see what the dude's got next.
Okay, moving on to the featherweight division. Sticking with the featherweight division, Jonathan Pierce defeats Makwan Amirkhani by TKO. Official time 4:10 of round number 2. Omar, sticking with you, what's your take?
I mean, I don't think I saw this coming. I don't think this was one of the ones that I picked. But I mean, what can you say, man? Jonathan Pierce is an absolute. Amirkhani is not an easy dude to put out. And Jonathan Pierce got it done in devastating fashion. So good on him.
Mark?
Yeah, we both you and I last week, Mike, we thought that Amirkhani could find a sub in round one. Obviously, we know things go past round one. Things tend to go south for Amirkhani, but we thought he could snatch it up, and he had his shot. He dragged Pierce down. He had his arms wrapped around-ish of the neck a couple times, but he couldn't quite find a way to truly get a choke in there. And in the process, he ate about 1 million elbows on the left side of his head while he was trying to accomplish that. And honestly, I think that damage added up because in the second round, when Pierce got on top of him and he was landing to the left side of the head, to me it didn't seem huge, but Amirkhani was reacting very badly. And I think those elbows from the first round, that the left side of his head was just ruined already by that point, and he couldn't take the shots anymore. So good on Pierce. Obviously got through some tricky moments with a really good grappler and finishes him. So, yeah, big win for him. He moves up the ranks for sure.
Omar, I already got you for this fight?
Yes.
Yeah, and it turns out I did pick Pierce to win by second round TKO. So
Oh, my God.
go
Wow.
me.
Look at you go.
Yeah, go me.
And you don't even know you
Okay,
did
in the
it.
flyweight division. In the flyweight division, a big prospect keeps rolling. Muhammad Mokaev defeats Charles Johnson by unanimous decision. 30-27s, all three scorecards. Mark, sticking with you. Go first.
Yeah, so Muhammad Mokaev was pretty clearly dominant in this one. The dude can slam. But Charles Johnson did a good job defending and staying safe. Like, Mokaev was not really able to show out in quite the fashion that I'm sure he had hoped he would. He controlled the fight the whole time, a lot of slams, a lot of takedowns, but he couldn't necessarily hurt Johnson all that much or really put him in that much trouble. So we see that Mokaev is human, but obviously he remains undefeated, clear win, keeps marching forward.
Omar.
Yeah, it was a good win for Mokaev. Definitely a dominant win. Added a couple things to his highlight reel. There was a nice little suplex in the first round that happened. So he's definitely got some nice things to take away from that fight. But to Mark's point, he looked his ability not to finish the fight and to find a finish in that fight. Not to say it was a chink in him because it was still a very dominant performance, but it does put into perspective that we're still kind of at the lower echelon and we're still not able to find that finish in that fight. So interesting to see, what happens with more competitive folks down the line, but still a great win for Mokaev.
Okay, in the lightweight division, Jai Herbert defeats Kyle Nelson by UD 29-28 across the board. Omar, sticking with you, what's your take?
Yeah, not the most exciting fight in the world, but I did have Jai Herbert winning by TKO round 3. I should have known better. Probably was definitely better off going with decision in that one. But I had Jai Herbert winning rounds 2 and 3. I had, was it Nelson is his name?
Yeah.
I had Nelson winning round 1. I don't know how you had it, Mark, but I thought it
way.
was a decent fight. Yeah, I thought it was a decent fight. Nothing really to scream home about, but Jai Herbert finally got a nice little W on his record, which I think he needed. So good on him.
Mark?
Yeah, I thought we were going to get a lot more out of Jai Herbert in this one. I picked a knockout. I might have even said first round, I think. I thought he was going to come way harder, and he just didn't. The commentary team was saying it. I do think he was maybe a bit gun-shy coming off that brutal knockout at the hands of Ilia Topuria, which I hadn't really considered. He did not come out anywhere near his, normal blitzing self. But even so, he found a way to grind it out and to earn the decision on the cards, and I do think it was the right decision. I thought he earned rounds 2 and 3, so good for him, and as Omar said, he needed that W.
Okay, women's flyweight Victoria Leonardo defeats Mandy Baum by unanimous decision, 30-27s across the board. Mark, sticking with you. Take it.
I'm not sure what the Baum game plan was in this fight. She fought the wrong fight. She should have probably stayed at range, and she almost never kept that range. She let Leonardo crash inside and clinch her constantly and grind on her and take her down here and there, and it was enough to let Leonardo walk out with a W when I think the fight could have gone a lot different if Baum would have fought it differently.
Omar?
I think Jai Herbert needed a little bit of what Victoria Leonardo had for dinner, man, because that girl was very aggressive in that fight, pushing forward. really trying to get the control and trying to get her distance management done. And I think she did a great job at it. I definitely had her winning all 3 rounds. I think that was the entire decision. It's a great victory, I think, for Victoria for sure.
Okay, last one, boys. In the welterweight division, Nicholas Dalby defeats Claudio Silva by UD. Scores read 29-28, 29-28, and 29-27. Omar, go first.
Yeah, I had Dalby winning the last 2 rounds. Definitely a rough fight. Started off a little bit rough, obviously, for Dalby, but glad he was able to get those last 2 rounds in. I had him winning by decision, so glad we got that one.
Mark, take us home.
Yeah, we knew the story of this one going in. Claudio Silva's jiu-jitsu is really dangerous early, but his cardio is suspect. And Nicholas Dalby will never stop coming for all 15 minutes. And that is exactly how the fight played out. So credit to Dalby. He poured it on. He made sure he couldn't be denied on the cards. I agree. Thought he won rounds 2 and 3. Glad it went his way. Nice win for him.
Okay, bonus one, boys. 1 championship, 159. Main event. Rainer de Ritter defeats Vitaly Big Dash by technical submission via inverted triangle choke, which looked really slick. In round number 1, the official time, 3:29. Mark, give us your lightning take of Rainer de Ritter getting it done, staying undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, Rainer de Ritter, man, he did what he does. Like, it's very hard to gauge just how good he is until we see him fight someone who has proven more in their career. But he's impressive. He came out, he gets cracked early. He ends up in a really tight guillotine that it took him a bit to escape. And then once he did, he's on top. It takes him a few minutes of work, and next thing you know, he's got a goddamn reverse triangle, and he's putting a guy to sleep. So he moves to 16-0, and like you said, it looked hella slick.
Omar, your thoughts?
Yeah, Big Dash with that guillotine right off the bat, with that first entry, looked like he put everything he had into that guillotine trying to finish it, which, we could argue all day whether that was smart or that was dumb. They're dry, so there's not a lot of, wetness to get out of there, but it's still early. So, are you really trying to gas for the entire fight? So regardless, de Ritter definitely took advantage of the moment. As soon as he got out of there, he was able to put it on him. And I think he was a little messed up from using his arms as much as he did so early. And that inverted triangle was wild. I didn't even think he had it in tight until the dude was just out cold.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Great finish.
Yeah. All right, boys. That does it for this week's lightning round. Thank you so much. Not bad, guys. Not bad. It was the lightning.
Pretty
takes were
lightning-y.
Pretty lightning this time.
Yeah.
Pretty lightning-y. All right. Let's put a bow on this UFC Fight Night by finding out who rose and who fell in our very own ranking system, the Priaulx Rankings. Mark?
All right, well, it works out nicely for us on this jam-packed episode because there are only 2 to speak of. 2 risers this week, no fallers. First riser is Paddy Pimblett, rises from number 63 to number 55. Not a huge jump, but obviously the opponent was only Jordan Levitt. But he keeps creeping up, and as we said earlier, he has hit real territory now, so we will see where he goes from here. The other riser is a much bigger jump, which is Jonathan Pierce, JSP, moving from number 45 in my featherweight ranks all the way up to number 25. So really big jump for him. His only UFC loss is up at lightweight when he debuted against Joe Lozon. He's now 4-1 in the octagon. He's won 4 in a row, and he gets a nice win here over a name guy in Makwani Amirkhani. And that is the Priaulx rankings for the week. The wankings.
A quickie. A quick one. All right, boys. Now let's find out what is going on in the world of MMA outside of the cage, meaning in the headlines. With our next segment, Inside the MMA Sphere. Omar, take it away.
What is going on? Sorry there was no Inside the MMA Sphere last week, but your boy
we kind
is
of
back
patched one
here.
together.
We did.
You had some sprinkles in there. I loved it. But we'll make it a little bit more formal this time around. The reality is I only have 2 stories for you guys because I now have like 2 weeks of goddamn fight announcements to throw in here for you guys. So we're going to get through all that. Really quick, if you haven't heard or already know, this did happen a little while ago now at this point, but Disney will be raising the prices of the UFC pay-per-views at this point, and for the ESPN Plus.
Again?
I'm sorry, not the pay-per-views, just the ESPN Plus subscriptions by 43%.
Okay.
So the ESPN Plus subscription before was $6.99 by itself. It will now be going to $9.99 a month. Pay-per-views are an additional $74.99 per event. So it's basically, now they're saying it's $1,019.86 per year to watch UFC pay-per-views and UFC ESPN Plus cards.
Wow, when you say it like that, that's a lot of money.
It is, but like I don't give a shit about any other sport, so it is what it is. If it was more than that, I'd still probably be paying for it. So it is what it is. What are you gonna do? They just
Don't
give
let them hear that.
Dana
I don't
White
want them to
money.
hear that.
Give Dana White money so he can give it to the Nelk boys. It's totally fine. Next on the list, Cain Velasquez. Just a quick update on his situation. He's due back in court in August 5th for a motion hearing, with an August 19th plea hearing also on the court's calendar. He has been denied bail for a third time officially at this point for the same reasons as he was denied bail the first two times. They just think he's a danger, and they don't necessarily trust him at this point out of jail with the accused still out and about. So that's basically what's going on with that. The accused, Gallardi, has pleaded not guilty to the felony charge of lewd acts with a child. He has a preliminary trial hearing on September 20th. And then there will also be some civil lawsuits against him and Bender, who I believe is his father. That'll be set for September 6th. So we'll have some more information, it looks like, sometime after September, probably leading into October. So we'll get you some updates after that. All right, let's get to some fight announcements, and we can move on to the upcoming week's fight. Just a couple of things here about this upcoming card. Maria Agapova is out of the UFC card this upcoming weekend. Jian Kim will now be facing Jocelyn Edwards as a last-minute replacement. Diego Ferreira is also out against his fight with Drakkar Klose. Klose will now be facing Rafa Garcia on short notice. So those are just two announcements for this upcoming weekend's card. If you have not been following TUF, this season of TUF has officially ended. We have our two championship fights on our two TUF championship fights on the calendar now. Zach Pauga versus Muhammad Usman has been added to UFC's Vegas 59 card on August 6th, as well as Brogan Walker versus Juliana Miller. Jojo, I believe, is what they call her, or Juju, not Jojo. Juju Miller has been added to that same card as well. Definitely be on the lookout for those two finales. Those Brogan and Juju are super fantastic to watch. They've been really, really fun to watch throughout that TUF season. So very excited to see what happens with that. Next on the list for the August 13th San Diego card, Gabriel Benitez versus Charlie Ontiveros. Zubaira Tukhugov.
Yep.
Tuhugov.
Zubaira Tukhugov is out against his fight against Nate Landwehr. David Onama will be stepping in on short notice to fill that slot. I feel bad for Nate Landwehr now. That might not go his way. And the last update for that specific card is Ode Osborne versus Tyson Nam has also been added, which is a solid fight.
Yeah, it is.
A couple updates for the September 3rd card in UFC Paris. Jessica Andrade is out against the fight with Caitlin Chukagian. Against Manon Fior, and so Caitlin Chukagian will be back in against Manon Fior. I think, Mark, you mentioned that last week briefly, but just going back into it. And Benoit Saint-Denis versus Christos Giagos has been also added to the UFC Paris card as well. The September 10th UFC 279 card has got a couple of additions. One, namely, being the main event. Hamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz will be headlining that card. I feel like you guys might have touched on that last week. I don't remember now, but
Yeah, we did.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is it headlining? Oh my God.
I mean, that's gonna sell, Mike. That fight's gonna.
I
sell.
know. I know.
Johnny Walker versus Ian Kunte-Laba has also been added to that card. And last on that card is Jamie Pickett versus Dennis Tululian. Should be an interesting fight. Now to get to some of these meat and potatoes, because we've gotten a couple good fights all the way leading up to this point. But UFC 280 is officially stacked. And I think they just started putting this card together. So we'll run down some of these fights here just so you can see exactly how sick this card is. Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw for UFC 280. This is going down in Abu Dhabi, by the way. So if you're planning on buying tickets, buy plane tickets first. Beneil Dariush versus Mateusz Gamrot has also been added. Marina Rodriguez versus Amanda Lemos. Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley. Brendan Allen versus Christoph Jotko. Charles, ya boy Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev is finally going down for the vacant lightweight title, quote unquote vacant, but the real ones know what it is. And last but not least, Tuhugov is pulled out of the fight in August, but he has been rescheduled for a fight on this October card in Abu Dhabi against Lucas Almeida. So that should be interesting to watch. We got through it, baby. That's 2 weeks of fight announcements I had to get through. Let's get to this week's card.
Very nice, very nice.
Beautiful. All right. Let us now preview this coming weekend's UFC 277 Pena versus Nunes. It's going down Saturday night, July 30th at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas. Big D. All right, boys, let us work our way up this card. We're not going to preview every single one of the fights on this card, but it's a very good card. Let us begin in the lightweight division with Drakkar Klose taking on Rafa Garcia. Gifted Rafa Garcia. I love that little nickname. Okay, we have Drakkar Klose, 34-year-old from my now home state of Michigan. He's from South Haven. Oh, shit, he's from South Haven. Wow, that's so close to me. He's 12-2 as a pro. 12-2, one draw. Most recently, coming off of a win against Brandon Jenkins. Jenkins. Then you have Rafa Gifted Garcia from Baja, California, Mexico. Let's see, coming off of back-to-back wins against Natan Levy and Jesse Ronson. Let's see, 13-2 as a pro. These guys are pretty evenly matched. Mark, what's your take, and give us a pick?
All right, so Klose is the favorite here. He's minus 230. Rafa Garcia is plus 180. I got to say, it sucks that Diego Ferreira fell out of this fight. I was very excited to see Klose and Ferreira in there. But Garcia should be an exciting replacement. Obviously, jumping in on short notice, he is skilled, but I think Klose is just a tough matchup for him. I think Klose can wrestle if need be, and that he may not even need to, because I think he may just be able to pressure and kind of overwhelm Garcia and get him off his game that way. I think he's just a level above where Rafa Garcia is at right now, and I will say that he wins a clear UD.
Omar?
I would have to agree. I think Drakkar Klose is just a level above Garcia at this point. One would argue he was winning that fight with Dariush up until the point where he wasn't. I don't. If this was his first fight back after that whole Jeremy Stevens neck disc thing, whatever happened there, I would be a little bit more hesitant on where to go with this fight. But he looked good in his last fight a couple months ago. So I'm gonna go with Drakkar Klose as well. I'm actually going to go with the second round KO.
I like Drakkar Klose. I think he's going to have the edge in power, and I think he's going to have the ability to keep Rafa Garcia from taking him down and submitting him, which is Garcia's strong suit here. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Drakkar Klose. I'm going to go with third round TKO.
Nice. Three different finishes.
Okay, boys. Let's look at the lightweight division matchup between Drew Dober and Rafael Alves. So, Drew Dober, one of my favorite fighters, to be quite honest. 33-year-old from Omaha, Nebraska, 24-11 as a pro with 11 knockouts, 6 submissions. Dober's coming off of that very exciting first-round finish over the up-and-comer Terrence McKinney. Then you have Rafael Alves. His nickname is The Turn, which is interesting. Of course, from Brazil, he's 20-10 as a pro, coming off of a guillotine choke win over Mark Jacasey. Omar, let me throw it over to you first this time. What's your take between Dober and Alves?
Well, so the Terrence McKinney fight, I think, was interesting because, Dober got lit up a little bit in that fight and had to go through some adversity very, very early in that fight, and then was able to push through and come back and essentially handle Terrence McKinney for the second half of that round, essentially. I think that he has the chin to also kind of do the same in the event he gets caught with something here, because Alves is definitely somebody who can tag you up if he has to. But I think Drew Dober, the experience, I think will play in Drew Dober's favor, but I also think Drew Dober has enough of a chin and has enough willpower and some calm in there to kind of keep his wits about him if he ever does get into a bit of a firefight. Skill for skill, I think Drew Dober is also a little bit more well-rounded. I think his ground game is good enough that he won't get abused on the ground by a jiu-jitsu guy. So I'm going to go with Drew Dober here. I'm going to go with Drew Dober by decision.
Mark?
Similar odds to the last one. Dober's the favorite at -220. Alves is the +180 dog. Alves is super dangerous, and this could even look similar to the craziness that Dober went through against McKinney, because Alves is probably going to come out like a whirlwind. He looks to lock up that guillotine at all times. He looks for it right away. It's how he won a Contender Series. It's how he took out Jacasey. I just don't know if I see Drew Dober getting caught in one. And frankly, that's what I think this fight comes down to. Do I think Dober is going to get hurt early in some type of blitz or guillotined early or not? And I think I'm going to say not. I'll say that if he can survive that round one against McKinney the way he did, it's hard for me to say that he can't survive it here. So I will say that maybe he loses that round just because of how hot Alves comes out. But either way, he toughs it out, takes the fight over, wins at least the last 2 rounds, and wins a UD. And there is a massive housefly on my screen.
Is there? I cannot see it. I also like Drew Dober by decision here. I have a similar take to Mark. I think that this is going to be a back-and-forth fight. I think this might be a close fight, but I think that Drew Dober is going to be very durable. I do not think that Rafael Alves is going to find a guillotine. Have you seen Drew Dober's neck, Mark? I haven't. The boy does not have a neck.
I was going to say, I don't think anybody's seen Drew Dober's neck in quite some time.
That being said, yeah, I think it's going to be a back-and-forth fight. I think Drew Dober is going to win more of the exchanges and land the more consequential blows. And I think he's going to take the fight by unanimous decision. America. Okay. In the welterweight division, we have Alex the Great White Morono, Houston, Texas. So he is the Texas hometown boy in this fight, taking on Matthew Semelsberger. Morono, highest profile fight is when he stepped in to face Donald Cowboy Cerrone back in May of 2021. He's won 3 straight between Cerrone, David Zawada, and Mickey Gall, most recently last December. Morono's got a nice little record, 21-7, and 1 no contest. Semelsberger, Semi the Jedi from Maryland, 10-3 as a pro, so he's a little bit more of an up-and-comer. 29 years old, coming off of back-to-back wins, most recently against A.J. Fletcher by UD back in March. Mark, why don't you go first this time? Give us your assessment of Semelsberger versus Morono and ultimately your pick.
So Semelsberger is favored here. I wasn't sure what these odds were going to look like, but he is -165 and Morono is +135. So fairly close. Morono thus far has shown to be he's earned a higher, ranking than Semelsberger has in the UFC. He's proven more. But Semelsberger has shown a lot of signs. First off, he's 2 inches taller than Morono. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage. He has a lot of power. He can wrestle. He's shown that he's tough. He hung in there with Chaos Williams for 3 rounds. And in his 4 wins, he's ended 2 of them in about 10 seconds by knockout. So the man's power cannot be slept on. And as much as I like what I've seen from Morono a lot lately, I just feel like there's a lot of checks in that corner of Matt Semelsberger right now. And it's hard for me not to go with him. I'm going to say maybe Morono is controlling things for a bit, and something explosive happens. He gets caught with something, tide turns, and I will say that we're out of there by round 2. KO for Matt Semelsberger.
Omar, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a little bit more trust in Morono's chin and his durability. The thing that I find fascinating about Morono is, if you look at him, he is one of the most unassuming human beings.
Yep.
Like, you would never think that dude is in the UFC, and he fights pretty damn well, right? I don't think he's the flashiest fighter or anything like that, but his fundamentals are solid, and he's effective when he needs to be, and I definitely think he knows how to win some fights. He's on a nice little streak right now, which has got to be great for his confidence. Semelsberger is solid as well, but for me, at least, there just seems to be something lacking in there, at least from, I don't even know from what perspective, whether it's the experience, the people that he's fought. We talked about one of the high-profile guys for Alex Morono being Donald Cerrone, but he also fought Anthony Pettis. He didn't beat the shit out of Donald Cerrone until he lost Anthony Pettis, and who knows if that did change something for him, if he was able to pick certain things up, learn lessons, whatever the case is. But some of those experiences are going to play a factor in his fights leading down the line, and so I think Morono is going to walk away with this. I think he can get 2 rounds out of Semelsberger. I'll go with Morono by decision.
Morono by decision. Tough one. I think in his last fight with AJ Fletcher, I think Semelsberger really showed out that he can really crack. I like his power difference. I think he's going to have the more consequential power there. I'm going to go with Semelsberger by TKO. Let's go round 2. All right, light heavyweight boys, getting up into some high-profile fights now.
Yeah.
In the light heavyweight division, we have Magomed Ankalaev taking on Anthony Lionheart-Smith. This is going to be a very good fight. We have Ankalaev, the Dagestani, 16-1 as a pro. He's 30 years old, 6'3". No submission victories, but 8 knockouts on his record. Knockout victories, that is. Only 1 career loss. Bear that in mind. And I believe it was I don't have his entire record pulled up in front of me, but I believe it was
his loss
a minute ago.
It was Paul Craig.
Oh, that's right.
Paul Craig tapped him with,
That's right.
I think, literally 1 second left, or 2 or 3 seconds left in the fight after getting dominated for the entire thing. Yeah.
Yeah, round 3, 4:59.
Literally had lost every second of the fight until that triangle.
Yep.
That was back in that was 4 years ago?
Maybe that sounds about right.
Yep. 2018, yeah.
There you go.
Okay. There you go. Okay. Well, Ankalaev, he's carrying quite the win streak, and he's taking on Anthony Lionheart-Smith, fan favorite. Anthony Smith, I think, is an unsung fighter at 205. The guy has fought pretty much a who's who at light heavyweight. He's riding a 3-fight win streak coming into Saturday night against Devin Clark, Jimmy Crute, and most recently submitting Ryan Spann with a rear naked choke. Anthony Smith is 36-16 as a professional. My goodness, what a record. Okay, enough of me talking. Omar, take it. What's your assessment and your pick?
I gotta be honest, man. This is a very, very difficult fight for me to pick. Both of these guys are extremely well-rounded. They both have moments in different aspects of the fight. If this stays standing, this could very well be a very competitive kickboxing match. I don't think one guy is significantly better than the other when it comes to that portion of the fight. If this fight goes to the ground, it's very possible Ankalaev might have a little bit of an advantage, but let's be real. Anthony Smith is not a slouch on the ground. If there's any, if there's any criticism to his ground game, is that sometimes he gets a little too complacent when he's on his back. Doesn't always necessarily find or have the urgency to get his ass up off the floor. But this fight is just very, very close, in terms of skill. Having to pick one with a gun to my head, I think I'm going to go with Ankalaev by decision.
Okay, Mark, take it.
You ready for these ridiculous odds? Magomed Ankalaev is minus 500. And Anthony Smith.
What in
What?
the whole hell?
Anthony,
The disrespect.
Right?
Proves my point.
Anthony Smith is plus 375. I thought it was maybe like going to be like 2-1, maybe minus 250 at maximum. Double that.
I actually thought it would be closer to even money. I thought we'd be looking at like plus 110, minus 100, something like that. But
Minus 5.
that's crazy.
Crazy. I'm literally just going to bet on Smith for the hell of it.
Right?
Plus 375. Basically 4-1 odds. You could probably find him at plus 400 somewhere.
That's wild.
And I do think this is a close fight. And I really, really would love to tell you why I think Anthony Smith is going to win. I want to pick it. I'm just struggling to find something to hang my hat on to allow me to make that pick. We know Smith can wrestle. I don't think he can wrestle quite as good as Ankalaev. We know Smith can strike. I don't think he can strike quite as good as Ankalaev. Obviously, Smith can snatch a sub, maybe more dangerously than Ankalaev can, but Ankalaev can grapple just fine, too. I don't know if I see him getting caught in something. I just think Ankalaev is slightly better everywhere the fight takes place. I do think it's a close fight. I think Smith is in it. Obviously, he's a dog. We know that. I actually think that I think Smith's best chance would maybe be to just come out balls to the wall and pressure nonstop from jump, because Ankalaev really likes to be able to kind of set the tone and set the pace and work his way into what he wants to be doing. And I think to just be swarmed by Smith out of the gate could possibly throw him off his game. I don't think that is what we see from Smith, though. And I also think Smith, as good as he is, has shown sometimes that when he meets physical resistance where a guy just happens to be significantly stronger than him or more of an athlete than him, that he sometimes struggles in that regard. And I think Ankalaev kind of fits that bill, especially in the strength department. So I'll say it's close, but I will say that Ankalaev wins at least 2 of these rounds, and I will say it's likely 29-28 UD for Magomed Ankalaev.
Omar, take it.
He took it, didn't he?
I did take it. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
gonna
my
stick-
bad. God damn it,
honestly,
I hate
for a
when I do
minute, I was going to change my pick, but I'm going to stick. I'm going to stick with Ankalaev decision.
No, sorry.
Mike, you going with the dog?
Sorry. Fuck yeah, I'm going with dog. I just said that he's fucking unsung at 205. How could I not go with him now?
How does he do it?
Oh, that's the tough part of the pick, because Ankalaev doesn't lose. I'll say he's gonna. I say he's gonna. It's 3 rounds. I'm gonna say he's gonna win on the scorecards. 29-28.
All right.
That's it.
I would love
It's
it.
the pick.
I would love it.
So would I.
I got to say, this card, as much as it's like not the most hyped card in the world, and it's maybe not the deepest, the undercard's not crazy or anything, every fight on this main card is top 10 fighters. Every single fighter on the whole main card is in the top 10. So it's, as much as it's not like the biggest card ever, it's a solid main card.
Okay, down in the flyweight division, Alexandre Pantoja, the Cannibal, taking on Alex Perez from California. Pantoja, needing no introduction to fans of the flyweight division, coming off of back-to-back wins against Manel Kopp and my guy, Brandon Royval. Alex Perez, the Californian, is 30 years old, 24-6 as a pro. Most recently challenged for the title against Davison Figueiredo back in November of 2020. Taking a little bit of a break. Do we know why? Do you guys know why he's been away so long?
He's had multiple fights scratched for different reasons. I think one was him and 2 were opponents or something along those lines.
So since that losing title challenge effort, Perez has taken some time off and he's stepping back in the cage this Saturday night against a very tough opponent in Alexandre Pantoja. Mark, go first.
You got me thinking now. I'm looking it up. Oh, my God, he's had so many Wow. Canceled against Schnell, canceled against Askarov, canceled against Schnell, canceled against Schnell, canceled against Schnell, canceled against Askarov. Wait, him and Schnell got canceled. Some of these cancels must mean, like, move to a different card. But even still, that's wild. All right, I'm going to have to look closer at that in a minute. But as for the fight pick, Pantoja's the favorite here. He's minus 170. Alex Perez is plus 140. I really believe in the level of talent that Alexandre Pantoja is. Even his losses have been decisions. He's not an easy out for anyone. He beat Brandon Moreno twice, if we're counting tough. He beat Kai Kara-France on tough. Granted, not quite the same Kai Kara-France we have now, but still. He beat Manel Kape, who I love. He just choked out Brandon Royval. Like, the guy is very good. Speaking of guys who are underrated, like Anthony Smith, I think Pantoja kind of fits that bill. I just think he's really high level and that he is a level above Alex Perez. Perez is an athlete. He has power. He has great calf kicks. He's got nice hand speed. Like, he's a factor. And I think he probably does steal around simply because of those things. But I think overall Pantoja figures him out. Not to mention, Pantoja hasn't fought in a year. But as we just said, Alex Perez hasn't fought in almost 2 years now. It's a long freaking time away from the cage. I'm going to say Pantoja figures him out, ends up taking 2 of the rounds pretty clearly, and wins a UD.
Omar.
Yeah, I also hold Pantoja to a pretty high regard. To me, he's going to be one of the perennial contenders in that division until he decides to leave. Or I guess move to another division if he wants to at some point. But I think he's extremely dangerous. And I think, Alex Perez kind of getting sunned by Deiveson Figueiredo, to me, just sort of set the tone for where he's at from a level perspective. I would probably pick Alex Perez against most guys within that top 15. But once we start getting into the nitty-gritty of the very tippity top of that division, it's very difficult for me to pick Alex Perez because I just don't think he has that thing that sets him apart from a lot of these other fighters. Figueiredo definitely has it. Moreno definitely has it. And I also think Pantoja definitely has it. One could argue that Pantoja should have gotten a title fight a long-ass time ago, much sooner than he's getting now. We don't need to hash that out. The reality is Pantoja is elite. I think he's been elite. I think he's going to stay elite for quite some time. And I think his skills will definitely translate very well once we see him inside there against Perez. I think we'll see the level above that he's at once that fight happens. So I'm going to go with Pantoja. I do think he finishes him. I do think there's another submission in the works for Pantoja. So I'm going to go with second round submission.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Perez is coming off of this, time away against, the very, very top of the division still, and he's going to run into the brick wall that I think is Alexandre Pantoja. Pantoja has a nice finish rate with 8 knockouts and 9 submissions, so I see Pantoja finishing Perez. I'm going to go with a second round finish.
Sub or TKO?
I'll say club and sub.
Like it. So I got the reasons here if we're curious. First fight he was booked against Schnell, he withdrew. Doesn't say why. That was in May of 2021. Then in July of 2021, he was booked against Askarov. Askarov got hurt. Then in September of 2021, he was supposed to fight Schnell, but they moved it back to December for whatever reason. Then when they got there, Schnell withdrew from the fight due to medical concerns. Then in February, he was supposed to fight Schnell for a third time. Perez missed weight. And Schnell elected not to fight him when he missed the weight. And then in July, he was supposed to be fighting Askarov. Askarov withdrew, and he got put into this Pantoja fight. He was supposed to be fighting Askarov 2 weeks ago. So I did not realize that. I wonder when that withdrawal happened. I feel like it was a while ago because I feel like we've known about this Pantoja booking for a bit. But yeah, that's how 2 years happens.
Yeah.
Shit is crazy.
Okay, moving up to the heavyweights now with the king of the knockouts, Derek Lewis, taking on Sergey Pavlovich. What a fight between two giants.
Yeah.
Derek Lewis, like I said, the king of the knockouts. I believe he still holds the record at this point for most knockouts total in UFC history. 37-year-old from Houston, Texas. So he's going to be the hometown Texas boy in Big D in Dallas this Saturday night. 26-9 as a pro. 21 knockouts with 1 submission victory. Sergey Pavlovich, the 30-year-old Russian, of course, coming in with 15-1 as a pro. My goodness, that is also quite a record. He will be riding a 3-fight win streak coming into this Saturday night. Mark, let me start with you. What's your take on Pavlovich taking on the Black Beast?
All right, we got a near pick 'em here. Pavlovich is actually favored. He is minus 125. Derek Lewis is plus 105, so almost even money on Derek Lewis.
Yeah.
This is a hard fight to pick, man. And I think I'm going to go away that I can't believe I'm going to go. Sergey Pavlovich is an absolute giant monster human. They're the same height, but the man has a frame of a cyborg, and he's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage on Derek Lewis, which is something that doesn't make me feel great. Pavlovich is also the more polished striker. Lewis, obviously, we know he's more of the brawler. He likes to close the distance, see if he can land something big on you. And, of course, we know it only takes one. So it is very possible that he makes me look dumb here, and I feel bad for not picking Derek Lewis because I always pick Derek Lewis. But I'm going to go with Sergey Pavlovich. I think he's looked great. I think Derek Lewis is finally starting to show some signs of maybe going the other way. I didn't love how he looked in there against Tai Tuivasa. He is 37 years old now. He's been in a lot of wars. It's possible that we're kind of moving to the other side here with Derek Lewis, and hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm jumping the gun. But we know his chin can be cracked. We've seen it multiple times. As much as he is a knockout artist, he can be hurt. And unfortunately, I think that's what we see here. I'm going to say Pavlovich, the range plays a factor, and he knocks him out in round 1.
Omar.
Yeah, I would agree with Mark. I think to be even more specific than, his chin is crackable. He doesn't like getting hit. And so even if he's not, getting put out like Tai Tuivasa did to him and kind of shutting off his body, we've seen Derek Lewis get hit with shots, and Derek Lewis, will turn around and curl up and be like, "Nah, I don't want this anymore. This wasn't cool. I didn't like the way that felt." And I think Sergey Pavlovich has numerous ways to make that reaction happen. And I do agree that it's going to happen early, and I do agree I think it'll look terrible. Like I think Pavlovich is really going to put it on Derek Lewis in that first round. I would love Derek Lewis to win. I will be rooting for Derek Lewis to win. Let's be 100% clear about that.
Oh yeah.
I just do not think he will win. So I am going to go with Pavlovich by first round KO. TKO. I don't think he's going to put him out, but I do think he's going to make him curl up and essentially not want to fight anymore.
Boys, we are unanimous.
Oh, man. Makes it hurt even more.
I know. I
wanted one of us to be the good guy.
Even though online Derek Lewis is listed at about 10 pounds heavier than Pavlovich, at this weight that doesn't matter. Yeah, I agree. I think Pavlovich is just a giant, statue of a human, and has the abilities to go toe-to-toe with Derek Lewis, which not many other heavyweights do, really. Man, Pavlovich is scary good. His record shows that he's 15-1 with an amazing finish rate of his own, 12 knockouts of the 15 wins. So I also will go with Pavlovich. And once again, I will say second round TKO. It will not be a knockout. I agree with Omar. I think he's going to stun him, and I think we're going to see Derek Lewis turtle up, and Pavlovich is going to get the stoppage.
Yeah.
Okay, co-main event time. This is going to be an amazing fight in the flyweight division between Brandon, the Assassin Baby Morono, versus Kai, Don't Blink, Kara France. Wait, Kara France is his last name, or Kai Kara is his first name?
Kai is his first name. Kara France is his last name.
Kara France.
That's what I thought. Because we have talked about this in the past.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the only reason why it tripped me up. I was like, wait, we've talked about this. Okay, good. Brandon Moreno, former UFC flyweight champion, was recently unseated by Deiveson Figueiredo. They have been trading that belt back and forth a little bit. Moreno, 28 years old, 19-6 as a pro with 2 draws, 3 knockouts, 11 subs on his record. Most recently, of course, that losing his belt again to Figueiredo back in January of this year. Kai Kara France from New Zealand, the Kiwi, 29 years old. 29 years old, I was going to say as well, but no, Moreno's 28. 24-9 as a pro, won no contest. Coming into Saturday night, riding a 3-fight win streak, most recently defeating Askar Askarov by unanimous decision. Okay, Omar, I'll start with you this time. Give us your assessment of Kara France versus Moreno and ultimately your pick.
I'm glad Omar's going first. I needed to hear him first on this.
I love this fight personally. I love both guys. If this was anybody else, I'd be picking Kai Kara France, without hesitation. The reality is Brandon Moreno is my boy. So that is what it is. It could be Brandon Moreno versus a dragon. I'm still fucking picking Brandon Moreno. Okay? So that's just how life works.
Okay.
Brandon Moreno is the second half of the pandemic trilogy that was the Deiveson Figueiredo fights. And in my opinion, he won that last fight. I do not think Deiveson Figueiredo won that fight on the scorecards. I thought that Moreno did. Regardless, I think that Brandon Moreno has definitely shown improvements, leaps and bounds over what he was in tough the last time that Kara France and him fought. I don't even think is a factor from both sides of the equation, frankly. So I think this will be a very new fight as far as that's concerned. I still really like Moreno, though. I think the kid's submission game, I think, is very slick, especially when he gets the opportunity to really use it, especially his ground control in general. His striking has only improved. His use of his jab, I think, has been fantastic over the last few fights. I'm going to go with Brandon Moreno. I don't think that either one of these guys will finish each other. They're both very, very durable and very, very tough. It's very possible they will both piece each other up. We might see a lot of scrapes, bruises, black eyes, hematomas, all that kind of shit. But I don't think anybody's going to go out in this fight. So I'm going to go with Moreno by a grueling decision.
Okay, Mark, you're up.
I just want to say they didn't see each other on that tough season, Omar, because Moreno got eliminated right away by Pantoja.
It was Pantoja's record I was looking at. It was Pantoja's record I was looking at.
Yeah,
that's right.
But they have fought.
He fought
he
fought
UFC.
Moreno. He fought Moreno, and he fought.
Correct. Pantoja did. Yes.
Yeah.
But these two have fought in the UFC. They fought
Right.
back in 2019, and Moreno got the UD. So this is actually Moreno Kara France 2 that we have here. Moreno is a 2-1 favorite. He's minus 210. Kara France is plus 170. I love Kai. I'm so high on him coming off that tough win over Askarov, especially because I picked it. Felt smart. Honestly, I was proud of the guy for coming through with that win. That was a tough matchup, and he got it done. He fought it perfectly, honestly.
Yes.
But as high as I am on him, I just still feel like Brandon Moreno and Deiveson Figueiredo are at a different level than the rest of the division is at. And I can't pick Kara France to beat Brandon Moreno. Kara France is not going to have the reach advantage that he usually does in this division. Moreno's is actually 1 inch longer than his, so that's a factor. Moreno's taller than him by 3 inches, so that'll help Moreno with the kicks, which I am sure he will be throwing. He's getting better and better with his kicks each fight. They'll be a factor here. I think Kai, of course, packs a lot of power, but Brandon is not someone I see getting knocked out. He's never even been finished. I don't think that starts here. The guy can take a punch. He's got a great chin. He slips punches really well, kind of rolls with them really well. I love Moreno's volume. I love his pressure. I think those are both a factor here. I think he mixes in at least some takedowns, maybe not necessarily to wrestle. Maybe he does. He absolutely could. But at least just to kind of create some scrambles, to throw off any rhythm that Kara France is trying to set himself into, to time big shots. I think Moreno can just kind of control it. I do think Kai has gotten good. And remember, their first fight was really close. It's not like it wasn't.
Yep.
It was a close-ass fight. I think Kai's gotten better, but I think Brandon has also gotten better. I think Kai's good enough that he'll take at least a round, if not two. But I also think there'll be portions of the fight where it looks like he doesn't have answers for what Moreno is doing in those moments, and I think Moreno takes at least 3 of the rounds for a clear UD.
Oh, I'm going to hate to see either one of these guys lose. I love both of these flyweights right here. And this is a tough fight for me to pick, to be quite honest. Skill for skill, strike for strike. I think both these guys are great. I'm going to give a slight edge to Moreno in experience, with his championship experience at this point, which is, he's been in there with Figueiredo 3 times in a row. And a guy like Figueiredo, with the stakes of those fights, I'll go with Moreno. I'm going to just say I have no idea. This fight is super tough for me to pick. I'll say Moreno by UD and just see what happens.
Omar, did you also say decision? I forget what you said.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think either one of these guys are going to be able to take each other out. Even if I was picking Car France, it wouldn't have been a finish.
Yeah. Agree.
Okay. It is main event time, gentlemen. UFC 277. We have Juliana, the Venezuelan vixen Pena, taking on the giant killer, the legend killer, Amanda Nunes. Juliana Pena, 32 years old, from Spokane, Washington, 11-4 as a pro, coming off of that incredible storybook victory over the great Amanda Nunes, in which she finished her. She utilized that amazing stiff jab the whole fight, ended up accumulating damage on Nunes, got her rocked, and finished her with I believe, a rear naked choke that wasn't even mounted. She was, I think, on the side of Nunes. But Nunes was so beat up and so gassed that she tapped.
Yeah.
No.
One would argue that choke wasn't even in all the way, but we're not going to do that to a man.
One would argue, but
sure.
not Omar.
One would argue. So that's Pena. She's 11-4 as a pro overall. Amazing. Women's bantamweight champion. She's 11-4 as a pro. You can do anything, man, in this world. You can do anything. Right? That's just a small record.
Yep.
Amanda Nunes needing no introduction. Of course, the lioness from Brazil. She's 21-5 as a pro, 34-year-old, coming off of that loss to Pena. But before that, one of the most legendary runs in the sport, man, starting with a stinging victory over Misha Tate, and then taking Ronda Rousey's soul, going on, beating Shevchenko, Pennington, Justino. She TKO'd Holly Holm. She beat Jermaine Durandamy, Felicia Spencer, Megan Anderson. Nobody's touching her belt until Juliana Pena. Mark, let me start with you this time. What's your assessment of this main event rematch between Juliana Pena and Amanda?
I'm so interested to see what the line is for this fight, because
Take a guess.
really quick before we go into it, I know what happened in this fight, right? We all saw it. We all saw what happened. I still don't believe that it happened, but like I saw it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I wonder if the line is going to reflect the same thought process I'm going through, because if it does, then Amanda's still going to be like minus 350 or minus 400 or something crazy.
That's my guess.
Amanda's still, and then Juliana is going to be like plus
200.
I don't know, 210. Yeah, like 210.
You guys are very close. Very close. Amanda is minus 285. Juliana is plus 225.
Okay. That's a lot shorter for Amanda than I thought it was going to be. So there's at least some reservations now.
Very close though. Yeah. Man, I had a harder time with this one than I thought I would have. And it's because we saw Juliana Pena break Amanda Nunes in their last fight. Like, there's no question that is what we saw. She broke her. And there's a big mental advantage that comes with doing that for Juliana Pena, and a big mental hurdle for Nunes from having that happen to you. So just off that reason, it's tempting for me to pick Juliana Pena again, but my brain is telling me otherwise. I do think Nunes appears somewhat surprisingly unfazed from what I could tell from watching Tough. She really did not seem like Pena was in her head in any kind of way. She almost struck me as being fully expectant that, like, almost like I just fucked up and I'm going to get this belt back, which I thought was good to see. I didn't know if it was going to be like that she was a little bit mentally off from having lost to Pena. I don't know if Omar will have a different take. We'll find out in a minute. But I know that Amanda Nunes is significantly better than what she showed in that first fight with Juliana Pena. I don't know what that was. I know that Juliana played it perfect. I know that Juliana can eat shots, which is a factor against Amanda, because if you don't go away, maybe she starts to tire. I know Juliana's grappling is there. She can survive on the mat, and that she's so tough and all that, and that's why she's a difficult matchup for Amanda. But all that aside, I didn't think that the Amanda that fought her in the first fight resembled the Amanda that we have become accustomed to seeing in prior fights. Even just specifically her cardio. It had not been an issue, and suddenly it's a glaring issue again. So I just think that was a bad version of Amanda. She says she had a knee issue that she tried to fight through. I know she was also coming off COVID that was not terribly long before that. So who knows what factored into it all. Remember, they had to delay the fight because Amanda had COVID. But I just think that the Amanda here will appear to be a level above the Amanda that was in the first fight. And I think that level is the difference between getting tired and losing and not getting tired and winning. And I'm going to say that Amanda just looks sharper. She's more prepared for what Pena's strengths are and the problems that Pena can present. I think her cardio looks better, and I'm going to say she fights a smarter fight, accumulates big shots as the fight goes on, and finishes it in round 4 via TKO to become the double champ once again.
My, oh my. All right, Omar, give us your take and your pick.
So, really quick, just in response to the Tough thing, I don't think that at least Juliana has shown some skill in talking shit in the past. More along the lines of, I'm just speaking the truth kind of talking shit, right? And I truly believe that Juliana believes the stuff that she says, right? When she says that she believes that she could outpace Amanda, she can take Amanda down, she can beat Amanda and all this other stuff, I believe that she believes that wholeheartedly inside. When Amanda says things like, last time was a fluke, things happened, and all this other stuff, it comes off to me like she's trying to convince herself, and not me, that first fight was a fluke.
Agree.
There wasn't a ton of trash talking in Tough.
No, shockingly small amounts.
It seemed, and again, it seemed more like Amanda trying to bait Juliana, trying to start some sort of mental game with Juliana, trying to put in her head probably the same doubts that Amanda went into in that first fight. Potentially the same type of doubts that she's going into with the second fight. Juliana seems unfazed. Juliana's determination and her belief in herself very well might play a factor in how this second fight turns out, because while Amanda might still be trying to figure out what the hell happened in that first fight, Juliana's just basically telling herself that's exactly what I said was going to happen, so I'm not really concerned about it. That went according to plan. Amanda Nunes, not so much. I think Amanda Nunes is the one that has a lot of space to catch up to. I think Amanda Nunes has more hype and I don't want to say responsibility because that's not really the word, but definitely expectations on her shoulder in regards to what should, quote unquote, be happening in this fight. Juliana, I think, is still sitting pretty in a very powerful position. She's got the belt. people still don't really expect her to win against Amanda again. And she could do it in an even more devastating fashion, or in technically an even more dominant fashion by beating her 50-45. Very possible that it could happen at this point. I'm interested to see what happens. If I have to take a pick, as much as I want to take Amanda for all the reasons that Mark said, there is something about self-belief that really fucks people. And I'm going to go with Juliana Pena by life-ruining decision.
Wow. Son of a bitch. Okay.
Mike is struggling.
No, I'm not struggling. I'm saying enough. This is going to be Amanda Nunes' fight. This is the woman who put all the naysayers to, what's the word I'm going to try to say? It's fucking late. I don't know. She killed Ronda Rousey. She killed Cyborg. This woman has a iron will here, okay? She's going to come back in this fight. She's going to knock out Juliana Pena. I'm taking Amanda Nunes by knockout or TKO. I'm going to go round number 2. I think she's going to have Pena in big trouble towards the end of the first round. Pena's going to survive, but then it's going to be night-night in round number 2, okay? That's it.
I have to respectfully disagree with she has an iron will. That
Come on, man.
No, I disagree wholeheartedly. I would agree that she has iron hands. That woman relies on those hands and knows how much damage she's delivering to these women when she throws it. And that's where all her confidence comes into. Juliana's face, her whole face, when she was messed up in that fight, you got to be wondering how much of that really affected Amanda. That she's thrown everything in the kitchen sink at her in the first round, and Juliana's still coming at her, throwing shots. And I think it broke her. Like Mark said, I think it broke her.
Maybe.
Iron will, that woman does not have. Between the two of them, Juliana Pena has a titanium will. That woman is on a different level when it comes to the will and determination. It's not even a competition. Amanda Nunes has the physicality and the tools to beat Pena. But if we're talking about grit for grit, I take Pena every time.
Okay. We'll see Saturday night.
We'll
see Saturday night.
I'm gonna text you. I'm gonna text you as it's going down.
I'm just so happy we're getting a card that's actually at night. These daytime cards are freaking killing me.
Poor Mark's in the park with his ESPN Plus
I'm trying to watch on my phone. It's terrible. Last weekend I was
here we go.
Planting plants in my yard, listening to the audio of Volkan and Paul Craig.
Okay, guys, I got 3 little trivia questions for us. Let's get through
Make it
this.
snappy because I need to go to sleep.
I know. I need to go to bed too.
It's just casually 12.
I'm gonna put them.
12:40 a.m.
I'm gonna put these. I'm gonna put these. I'm gonna give. Actually, I'll give one of them to one of you, and the other one to the other one of you, and then you'll both answer the third one.
Why can't we just answer
Okay.
them all? Whatever. You're the boss.
I don't know.
You're the boss. Go for it.
All right, fine. You put your heads together for this one. This is the easiest one, I think. Brandon Moreno has 2 draws on his record. Who are those draws against? Fill in the blanks.
I know it already.
Oh, I know. One of them is Davidson Figueiredo, obviously, and the other one...
Askarov.
Oh,
Very good.
Oscar.
Very good.
All right.
Question number 2. Also fill in the blank. Sergey Pavlovich only has 1 loss on his record. Who is it against?
Alistair over.
It's the Ream!
Very good. Bing, 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 bing. All right, last one. This is not. Okay, this is a fun one. Derek Lewis has 1 no contest on his record. It was against a man by the name of Jeremiah Constant or whatever. The fight went down January 27th, 2012 for the FTW Paramount Prize Fighting Championship of 2012. What caused this fight to be a no contest? Was it A, Derek Lewis illegally struck his opponent to the back of the head several times? B, Derek's opponent kicked him when he was considered a downed opponent with a knee on the mat? C, Derek Lewis tested positive for a banned substance immediately after the fight. Or D, the fight was stopped by the promoter because Constant kept running.
E, his balls
Can
were
it-
hot.
Oh my God, can it be D? Because that's the most amazing fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Promoter stops the fight because dude is running.
Did you see? Did you see
imagine?
this weekend, dude, in Russia or wherever it was?
No.
I thought I sent it to you guys. Did I not? It was Rashid
I might not have
Magomedov.
seen it.
Hold on, Rashid Magomedov. Who the hell was he fighting? Why am I blanking? Oh, it's not here. Why isn't it? Was it not Rashid Magomedov? Dude. Yes. Rashid Magomedov was fighting Ali Bagov, and they were both disqualified by the promoter because of how boring the fight was. He came into the fight mid-fight
Fucking
and waved it
hilarious.
off. And they shook hands like they were like, all right, yeah, shake hands. Like they weren't even like protesting it. It was wild.
That's funny.
That's insane. I
I'm
mean,
like-
that's crazy.
Not to mention, it was part of a tournament.
I guess they'll figure it out. All right, give me an answer and let's get out of here.
Sorry.
I'm gonna go with D. Just because that's amazing. If that's a choice that you just made up, Mike, bra fucking vote.
I'll go
because
with
that
the
is
back
an
of the
amazing
head.
choice.
So I was inspired by the video Mark shared. That's why
Okay,
I created
okay.
option D, because that just happened recently. And I thought that would be funny. Not that it was boring, but that the opponent of Derek Lewis was so terrified of him that he just ran the whole fight. And the promoter was like, it's over. It's over.
Man, I wanted
The
that
answer
to
is
be
A,
real
though. The
so
answer is A.
bad.
Very good mark.
Your boy's on a hot
Derek
streak.
Lewis, I believe, was winning the fight and ended up hitting him in the back of the head, and the ref stopped the fight. That was his only no contest.
Yeah, I've
Interesting that ended in a no contest and not a DQ. I'm always a little fuzzy on where those two, diverge.
Oh, Mike, it's all about intentional.
yes.
So if he didn't mean to hurt him in the back of the head, so it's fine. No worries.
Yeah, and his opponent probably was like, "Yeah, I'm definitely going to milk this. That I can't continue because I was just getting pounded. I'm not going to take a loss. It's going to be called a no contest." So anyway,
Did either of you see the Lorenz Larkin one this weekend?
no.
I mean, who knows with these things? But it was one elbow to like the right here, like back top of the head, and dude just was like, "No, I'm not fighting." And the ref was like, "No, you got time." And he was like, "No, I can't fight." He was like, "No, it takes some minutes." And then he keeps talking, and he's like, "All right, I need the translator," because the dude was like Russian. Translator comes in, and he's like, "Yeah, he says he can't fight." And the ref's like, "Are you sure?" Because like he's got time. And he's like, "No." He just immediately was like, "I'm not doing this."
So what
Damn.
was the result?
No contest.
It was a no
The ref said it was
contest.
unintentionally to the back of the head. It was like 3 minutes into the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that does it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. Hey, enjoy the fights this weekend. Nice pay-per-view. You got the rematch between Nunes and Pena. You had the huge profile fight between Cara France and Morono. Pavlovich versus Derek Lewis. Anyway, nice card. Enjoy the fights, and we will reconvene next week. Gentlemen?
It's good to be back. I missed you guys, and if you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button, get to some commenting, and let's get it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, you guys.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.